When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I grew older, I set aside childish ways. Corinthians 13:11. In the distant future, mankind has spread into the stars and found it is not alone. Within the cluster of planets known as the Silrain Heart, many races strive for survival or supremacy. But throughout this array of planets, societies, and cultures, each has one thing in common: the crucibles. Scattered throughout the galaxy, each moon-sized structure contains a core of raw sorium, a form of mysterious energy used to power ships, cities, and sometimes the warping of the fabric of reality itself. Beings who can do this have been given a name: Espers. The power of God has been granted to God's children. It is a time of terror. It is a time of wonder. It is the time of Esper Genesis.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Arvanauts, to a Friday night stream. It is March 19th, 2021, and it is my great pleasure to welcome everybody to day 61 of Esper Genesis Stormfall, sponsored, as always, by Alligator Alley Entertainment. And we're going to have a lot to say about Alligator Alley today as we get started. Because we have some not pleasant business, some rather sad business to talk about, which we will get to in just a minute. But before we get there, I do want to remind everybody about ways to support us here on the channel. If you haven't already done so, please follow the channel. That is always very much appreciated. If you haven't done so already, please consider supporting us by checking out the YouTube with !ArvTube, where you can see past broadcasts of this and other streams. And while we're on that subject, subscribing to YouTube would be really appreciated as well. We've had a number of additional subscribers there, and we want that to continue. I'm really trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers, because at that point I can monetize the channel and it will give me other benefits and give me basically alternatives to things that would not be able to do. Well, just in case anything were ever to go south with Twitch, which I don't expect. I'm a very big fan of the Twitch community, obviously, and of the Twitch ecosystem, but, you know, it's good things to be prepared just in case and all that kind of stuff. So subscribing over at YouTube, which would be free for you to do, definitely would help us out. So please consider doing that if you can. If you haven't done so already, Twitter, !ArvTweets, where you can talk about, you'll see me talking about various things, tweeting about stuff that's important, that I find important anyway in the world, and we'll always tweet when I'm going live and all that kind of of good stuff. That's !Arv tweets. And the website for all of this, of course, is arvineleron.com. Also, !Arv Cord is the Discord channel, so please jump over there as well. On the financial side of things, !Arv Shop is the area, the merchandise area, where you can get stuff for Infinity and Beyond and for Adventures of Middle-earth. And hopefully soon, Esper Genesis, although again, we'll talk more about that in a little bit. That also supports the channel as well as getting you cool swag. !Arv Treon is the Patreon, currently sitting at 21 patrons, $193 per month. Would love to see that get higher, because the higher that number goes, the more that we are able to do in terms of things we're able to put back into the channel, other shows and other tech stuff that benefits us and all that. It also supports my writing, which of course plays into this channel as well. So all of that is very much appreciated. And you can get inspirations to help our players, and you can also do that if you sub to the channel with that sub button. We've had a number of people jump on board with gift subs and resubs and subbing for the first time, prime subs and so on. So all that is appreciated as well. Finally, on the publishing side, Icarus is the Icarus graphic novel from Athos Arts. Very excited about Athos's future involvement in something, as we'll talk about coming soon. And about actually multiple, fronts regarding stuff with Athos that I'm not at liberty to talk about yet, but will be able to soon. Library is Tales and Tomes from the Forbidden Library, which is our 5e adventure and sourcebook from Alligator Alley Entertainment. And again, more coming soon on that front. There's more to talk about there, as I'll get to in just a moment. Good to see Mrs. Dunsel and Triffity Mats, and of course I saw Crit Twitch in here, and everybody else who's jumped on board. Welcome. So yes, we've got Icarus. I mentioned Library, and then of course Grayshade KS. That is the Grayshade Kickstarter, which is going to be launching next month. Very excited for that as well. More details about that are going to be coming soon. Finally, on the as always, BLM stands for Black Lives Matter. Very important to continue to affirm and assert the significance of protecting Black lives, and so please consider jumping on board and going over to that link where you will find resources and information and places where you can donate as well. And Help Now, which is the World Health Organization page on suicide prevention. Extremely important that people check that out also, to reach out to each other in what is a dark time, and if they need help, and to reach out to others if they themselves need help. It's important that we do that in both directions as members of the Arvanaut community. With that said, I'm going to bring the folks in a little bit earlier. I do just want to mention one quick thing about schedule, which is that on Saturday, tomorrow, we have got Palace of the Red Pasha, D&D with Infinity and Beyond. And then on Sunday, we have got the Speculate Twitch joint event of Blades in the Dark, These Strange Friends, with Yoi Gawain Lin, Yori Casano, Valerie Valdez, Mike Underwood, and Brandon O'Brien as your GM. Very excited to be hosting that, of course. Then on Monday, we've got Emberwind. Tuesday, we've got Adventures of Middle-earth. And then we've got D&D with GOG Storm King's Thunder. So that's what we've got going on. All very cool, exciting stuff. But I do want to bring in the folks a little bit earlier than normal, so I'm going to unmute myself so that they know that we're ready to go. I will apologize as always for interrupting them if I did so, and then I will unmute them.
Not accepted.
And last but certainly not least, head over there and forcibly require them to accept my apology. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
That is not how you do things. But yeah, so it is good to see everybody here. And just before I hand things over to let everyone introduce themselves, I wanted to take a moment to talk about something which I have been alluding to here. We brought this up last night, and this has been all over Twitter and on Facebook over the last day or so. Sadly, Brian Dalrymple, who was the owner of the Adventure Game Store in Florida and was the co-founder and owner of Alligator Alley Entertainment, passed away yesterday. He was 55. It was quite unexpected. Brian had been dealing with medical problems of different kinds, but still, this was kind of out of nowhere in terms of the speed of what happened. And it's a terrible loss. You've seen people today talking about it, I think, somewhat on Twitter, and people sort of expressing, as I felt, shock and deep sadness over the loss of someone who not only seemed to know everybody in the industry and was liked by everybody in the industry pretty much. I don't know anybody that had a bad thing to say about Brian, but also someone who was just a genuinely good guy. That was not faked. I believe everybody here except Zach actually met Brian. And Brian was a legitimately good person who made an effort, loved games and loved designing graphic designs for those. And it's no hyperbole to say that this campaign on Twitch would not exist without him, because Rich Lescouflair, who is the wonderful game designer, he and Brian were the ones who collectively I spoke to. In fact, I talked to Brian before I talked to Rich about this campaign. It was Brian who had the idea of not just I came to them with the Forbidden Library idea, but it was Brian's idea to expand it and call in all of these people, people like Will Haidt and Darcy Ross and James D'Amato and a bunch of these people. And then of course I brought in a lot of folks that I knew, like Carlos and Kat and other contributors. But it was his idea to do that and to turn what I was excited to be a good project into what was really a great one. Plus the graphic design work that he did, which is exceptional. I've showed this off many times, but a book like this is a full-out pro-level book. You could not put this, you could put it on a shelf next to anything out of WotC. And in fact, the glue would probably hold on longer than WotC. But anyway, you could do that and it would stand up to that scrutiny. And when we actually get the physical copies of Forbidden Library out of Blessed Customs, you'll see that that's the case for them as well. So it is a terrible loss. But I also have to admit, and I then will allow the players to say whatever they want to say, but I also have to admit to feeling a little bit angry also, and I want to explain why. Part of the reason, and without having to go into details here, because Brian had been struggling with the game store over the last year, because you may have all heard there was a pandemic, it meant that financially there were difficult things that he had to deal with. Who knows? I know for a fact the stress was impacting him. I know that it was constant. And I know that medically he probably had to make different decisions than he might otherwise have made because of the financial circumstances. And the thing that has angered me about this, beyond my own sort of sadness over the loss of a friend and someone who really was a good person, is the fact that I'm frustrated at the fact that the people that know him were the people within the industry with whom he interacted. This is a guy who was the secretary of Gamma for years, right? This is a guy who was a person who, as I said, knew all of these people. And yet outside of the circle of the industry, which is pretty small, his passing is going to not be, very few of you have heard of him beyond maybe your connection to this channel and knowing that we do this with Esper Genesis. This is not someone who you're going to see on the nightly news. This is not someone whose name is going to come up there. And when I look and I see the level of work that Brian put in tirelessly, laboring night after night after night after night to put things together, sometimes all on his own, sometimes with the support of the very small team at Alligator Alley, it upsets me that someone like this doesn't get the attention that those who are at the higher levels of, industry notice even would do. And this is nothing against the Matt Mercers of the world. But the reality is that the Matt Mercers of the world, the Marisha Rays of the world, the big time players of the world don't exist without the designers who bring them the games that make it possible for them to do what they do. I am blessed with enormously talented players. You're going to see it on display again today. Again, these are wonderful players. But these are players who I think would be the first to admit that it is the world building and the universe that's been presented that allows them to springboard in this context and produce something new with these characters. This is a person who, I'm not arguing for fame, I'm arguing for awareness. Because for every person that I know who this has happened to, there are 10 more Brians who labor in obscurity, relative obscurity, without getting the notice and attention that he deserved. And I'll admit to being a little angry that there wasn't something more out there that allowed people to know of the existence of someone like this. Not that he would have gone out of his way to seek it out, but that there wasn't more attention to, oh my God, this is an incredibly laid out book. Oh my God, this company is an extraordinary company that with 4 people somehow manages to put stuff that rivals multi-million-dollar budget work. And yet that person is gone at 55 without that level of recognition. And so I guess I want to argue, not only is this a thing to, as we all have said, hug your kids, hug your family, hug your friends, tell the people you care about that you love them because carpe diem and all that, right? But it's not just that. It's also take a look the next time you've had a great experience in tabletop and look at the people that made it possible. Look at the designers like Rich Lescouflair. Look at the people who are the graphic designers like Brian Dalrymple, the people like Chris Negelin and Eric Weiner, and the other ones who work at companies like Alligator Rally. And there are tons of these, right, that we could name, of independent RPGs or even independent supplements for existing big products like WotC and stuff like that you can get on DM's Guild. Take a look at the people who worked behind the scenes to make that possible, because those people who created games that sustained us through a year of lockdown, that inspired us, that have given us something to push off of, something to kind of set our minds afire a little bit when it comes to a game context, those people need attention to. And I personally wish that there had been a little bit more of that for Brian when he was around here with us. And so, having said all of that, it is a loss, a great loss, I think, to the industry. I'm very sorry to hear about it. I was very sorry to hear about it, and I was kind of in shock about it, actually, much yesterday. Brian was a friend, and I'm sorry, very sorry this happened. My thoughts and prayers genuinely go out to his friends and his very extensive friend group and family. It was too soon. It was too soon, and it was a big loss. So, having said that, I will now hand things over to let the players introduce themselves. And again, the players can say whatever they like or nothing at all. It's totally up to you. But I felt like I needed to get that off my chest. So, Johnny, always a pleasure to have you with us. Vidstar Cowboy, Johnny Pittman. Take it away, sir. Whatever you do or don't want to say is up to you.
Yeah, wow. I had a chance to meet Brian twice, both times at PAX Unplugged. The first time I met him was the first time Greg and I actually met in person as well. And we did an episode of Esper Genesis from a conference room where there were many technical challenges.
And security guards.
And security guards.
Yeah.
And
finish up your role-playing game, guys.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. We were getting pressured to get out of there by midnight. I think we were lucky to get in there at all.
Yep.
My partner Chrisanne was there.
Yep.
Everybody from Alligator Alley was there. And Brian, there was lively conversation going on about Star Wars: The Last Jedi, and then we were talking about other pop culture. And Eric is this gigantic, sort of boisterous person who takes over the room, and Rich is this quiet guy that sort of sits off in the distance, and makes comments that it's really interesting. And Chris was there, and he was just a part and raptured in the conversation, but just kind of watching it go. It was Brian who amazed me, though. He wasn't involved in that. He was involved in the production of the show, even just the small parts. And when there was time to not talk about the small parts of what was going on in the show, he had his laptop out and he was showing layout stuff specifically for the threats database. And he was giving us this great sort of introduction, and showing off the art and the way he was doing the text placement with the art. And you could see the passion behind what he was doing. He was ready to talk about it. He was ready to get involved. He was ready to just kind of share his enthusiasm in that way. Recently, because of the Kickstarter that I launched, I reached out to Brian to talk to him a little bit about his experiences running a Kickstarter, and he was incredibly enthusiastic and helpful. He was in a number of different groups on both Facebook and Reddit that I was participating in to kind of understand more what was involved, kind of communicating and sharing. And Brian was somebody who was always available. He was always just sort of sharing his presence and his knowledge. Yeah, I wouldn't be here doing certain things without him. The impact of his passing is much stronger than I expected on me. I'm sorry I didn't get to know him better, and he will be missed. And just to acknowledge something, you were talking about Eric and Rich. I want to talk about Chris for just a second, Greg. he shared yesterday how long he knew Brian, how he considered him a mentor and a friend. And, Eric's been taking care of all of the things related to Alligator Alley and the adventure store, as I understand it. And Chris was just feeling helpless, but as I saw him, he lost a friend of 18 years. He lost the person who was directly mentoring him and helping him, in his own path through all of this. And so I just want to make sure that he gets mentioned too.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyways, my name's Johnny. I'm playing Ashen Forge Melder by the name of Aramis. And yeah, that's me.
Thanks, Johnny. Kat?
I mainly remember Brian from being up at Origins and Gen Con encounters and never getting a great deal of time, but he was the face of the Esper Genesis crew in a lot of ways and was always a very welcoming, friendly guy who just never made me feel like I needed to assert my kind of credentials or anything like that. It's just a really kind of nice, accepting community, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
I am also running an Ashen Forged, but I am running a level 9 Ashen Forged Sentinel.
Yes, let it be said, level 9. I look forward to talking more about the shiny toys everyone got in a bit. Thank you, Kat. Carlos.
Yeah, like Kat, I met Brian at Origins and at Gen Con. But also, we had a pretty lively correspondence on Twitter. And I'm just looking for my copy. Here it is. Maybe like a week ago, my copy of Wingspan appeared. Because can you see that? I don't know.
No,
No,
I see
right
myself.
Now it's your copy of
I see
Gregory
myself
Wilson.
twice.
That's what it is.
Listen, we don't need any more copies of me, right?
That's really funny. So that is hilarious. So anyway, I've been hearing a lot about Wingspan. Hadn't bought it yet. Ordered it through the Adventure Games Store, and so he's been my supplier during pandemic. And he just he always did right in that in both in business. He was like the unicorn because he could do the business stuff and do the art stuff and do the writing stuff, but he could also do just like the human stuff. One time on Twitter, I happened to mention how much I love the trumpeter Maynard Ferguson, and that kicked off just like a little private conversation and a couple of links between us of different trumpeters that we liked, and he sent me a brass quintet, and we just had a conversation that way. He was just absolutely what you think of when you think of a Renaissance man. Could talk about absolutely anything. Yeah. When I started talking to him about the role-playing game that my wife and I are designing, one of the pieces of advice he gave, I'll just give this all to you for free, is that yearbook companies have downtimes in the fall where they will give you great prices and great products. So they're excellent at making source books.
Yep.
See that? Like, who would have thought of that? Brian would have thought of that. So,
yep.
He was just really smart, really helpful, really into his community, really capable, and just a pleasure to be around, Like Johnny, it's like, I was just like, oh yeah, over the years, we're going to grow closer. We're going to play some games. He's going to be like one of the people in my life. And it's really terrible that he's not.
Yeah. Agree.
I'm playing Ludoku Sleepwell, and I have gained more healing powers. I'll tell you about them soon.
Definitely needed more. I just look at people and stare at them, and they heal immediately just by my own stare. Just like healing stare.
That's level 13.
It's a bonus action. Healing stare. Heal. Oh, yeah.
You insist.
Thank you.
I'm
Carlos.
in damage. Liar.
Lie. You lie. Thank you, Carlos. And last but certainly not least, Zach.
Yeah, I didn't have the pleasure of meeting Brian. So I'm sort of relying, and very wisely so, relying on all of you for the more sentimental and personal experienced aspects of his passing. And of course, my condolences go to his family and everyone that knew him personally. I never really had an interaction with Brian, but one thing that I did want to point out in a bit of my process of learning about his passing and what he did was that in the Esper Genesis book, actually his first credit is not as graphic designer, but as art director.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
I just want to take a moment to note all of the amazing art that, for me as a player, prompted my imagination and really brought me into the theme and idea of how this book works. I'm sure if Greg or Carlos thumbed through and showed you any of the art in this book by all of the amazing artists that Brian directed, you would see that there was such a unique style just off the bat that I was like astounded to learn that Brian's hands were behind all of this, even though it may not have been the hands that drew it. So I just wanted to bring some attention to his accomplishments and his work, not only as the graphic designer that put the book together, but also the one who organized all of the, there was a lot of names. That looks like at least over 24 different artists that contributed to this book. And that touches a little bit on when someone said that he did a little bit of everything. I think it was Carlos talking about how he did the writing and the graphic design and all this. So, I didn't really have any personal interactions with him. I never got the chance to meet him, but to learn that his presence is all over, not like, everything we do, but yeah, the Bellaria artwork itself. I don't know. I can just imagine conversations and situations where he's working with the guys that put this book together and converting their thoughts and their imaginings into things that other people can understand. And that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like they nailed it. So I just wanted to give him some props, and that's the way that I'm going to remember him. And I also, of course, would like to echo everything else everyone else said as well. My name is Zach Clay. I'm going to be playing Cosmoritis, a Bellare hunter and specialist who now has some very, very insane stats. Can't wait to tell you.
Can't wait to hear about the insane stats.
5 million health. No.
I now I have now 1 giga energy health. What is that even? But thank you everybody for the words, and I wanted to give everyone a chance to do it since this is the one that's most directly related to the stuff that he did. And I'll echo what Zach said. First of all, what Johnny said. I mentioned Chris at one point, but it's 100% true that Chris's loss is palpable, and Chris is a good guy himself who has kind of. Definitely the mentoring has been a big part of that process for him. And then just also what Zach said about the art direction, that's 100% true. I mean, like, lousy art direction is clear. And just from my experience of working with him on Tales and Tomes, the Forbidden Library is a freaking good looking book. I think is art direction award worthy. It's why I want the physical book out, out of customs. It's great. And So agreed, and thank you everybody for the words. I think you would appreciate it. Okay, so with that said, let us get into a little bit of our game today. I'm going to fire up the music, and then we're going to talk about all the amazing things everyone has, and how they now just look at creatures and they just burst into flames, and that's how this works.
Hey, it's not level 10.
Right, exactly. I think I'm going to use some Forbidden Galaxy music for this one, which seems appropriate tying together these things. Hey, what's up?
Right.
Thank you, Gray, for the host. I appreciate that.
Ordering the sounds.
Okay, here we go. So there's the music. Good, lovely. All right. Yes, so let's go through this. Let's start with Johnny and Aramis. Tell me what new things an Ashen Forge melter. Like, do you have now 2 times the flaming discs? Are the flaming discs now flaming shurikens? Like what have we added on to the mixer?
Look, I'm going to admit I did not do the homework. I'm really sorry.
Sorry, you're level 8 then. You missed your chance. You're
right.
still you're just level 8.
Demoted.
You can leave me at level 8. I'm sorry. I was in the middle of a Kickstarter and everything else. And then, come on.
Congratulations on funding, by the way. We haven't talked about that, but congratulations on funding the Kickstarter.
So I'm a little behind the times. I'll work on it. I can't tell you that I did get a boost in Esper PowerPoints or whatever, talent points. And it seemed like some of the other players got, based on their classes, they got a change in what was it, the
proficiency bonus. Yeah, we're all at 4 proficiency bonus.
You should as well at level 9. Every class does.
Not according to what I see, so I'm looking for it. So the melder does not say anything on that on the chart. So anyways, so I'm still looking. So I didn't do the homework. I'm sorry. I will try to have something for you before the end. I can say that I do have 5th level Esper powers. Though.
Ooh, and let me tell you,
have some powerful stuff coming that direction.
I was just gonna say, like 5th level Esper powers are.
If it's anything like 5th edition, 5e, 5th level spells.
Just listen to the names of these, okay? Churning Pit, Domination, Dreamweave, Mass Alteration, Steel Barricade, Projected Force, Modify Memory, Towering Guardian. I mean, like, good God. Nice. They're either selling you a Black & Decker drill or they're doing something like top notch. Like, good gravy. I mean, like, right, Prince Justin? Those sound badass. Like, just... It's like the old. I used to love the old in 2nd edition and 1st edition D&D. I love the old psychic title names because there are things like Intellect Fortress and Psionics. I mean, rather Intellect Fortress and Ego Whip and like all this stuff. I was like, So, exactly. So you don't want to mess with it. Anyway, I look forward to seeing what those 5th level powers are. I know.
I just looked up Melder, and you do have a proficiency bonus of +4 now at level 9.
It's right next to the level.
Right. You can't.
Oh, you're right. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm sorry. I can't read.
They're all like, you should have not been able to miss that. It should have been obvious. Maybe you haven't earned level 9 if you don't even know.
I'm sorry. It's been so long, and I've totally forgot.
Yeah.
I feel really bad.
Aramis has better stats, but Johnny needs to level up his perception.
Exactly.
Exactly. Character and player knowledge being different. Well, so I will hear more about the rank 5 powers in a minute. But I want to find out from Kat, who I know for a fact has done her homework because she was telling us in Twitter about the cool things that Petra had, including the +4 proficiency, I think. So what cool new stuff, Kat, does Petra now possess at level 9?
So I do want to say, having done my homework, that one of the things I would like to pass along to the Esper Genesis guys, if they're watching, is that we actually kind of figured that the game book is a little unclear and it's easy to kind of misread it. And so we have helpful suggestions, I'm sure.
Okay.
But yes, +4 proficiency bonus. And I've gotten, now have 2 level 3 tech slots. And the 2 effects that I have gotten, one is the Optimizer, where basically I can give this to a creature within 30 feet and they'll get advantage on wisdom and death saving throws, and also any healing done to them does max.
Nice.
The other
by I'm sorry, Cap, healing by you or by anybody?
Anybody.
Oh wow. So we're going to see a bunch of Petra Sleepwell combos, like,
Oh yeah.
You want to be healed, don't you? Sleepwell heal. And like okay. Sorry, go on, Kat.
The other thing that the regenerative pool has gone up, but the other spell that she has, or tech slot or whatever it is the unravel effect, which has a 120-foot range, where I can take a creature, object, or Esper effect of rank 3 or lower and just go nope, and nope it out of existence. And if it's above rank 3, then they get a saving throw.
Yeah, so it's essentially a kind of dispel magic almost. Yep, exactly. That's awesome. Yeah. Fastball special healing. Yeah, you just take Sleepwell and throw Sleepwell directly at the person who needs to be healed, and Sleepwell hits them, and just healing bursts of rainbow is what happens.
I die, but there's lots of
healing. But there's lots of healing though. Wow. Okay. So you are excited. Also, I should say, as the kids say, I should say too that you were currently at, I believe I have you now at 28 out of 76 hit points, Petra. Okay, so that was up from last time. And Aramis, I had you at 38 out of 49 because I think we rolled it at the end. Okay. All right. So Sleepwell, I assume now that just by thinking you want someone to be healed, it happens. Like, I'm guessing that's the way things work. Tell me what you gained.
Yeah, just the big thing for the medic specialization for engineer is I've got 2 more spell slots, one at 4th level and my first 5th level power. And so there is one that's called Mass Mend that is really going to annoy you. It's just really going to be, it's like, because I'm a healer, it's like it does 3d8 healing, and then with all my bonuses and stuff, it's gonna like average like 20 points of healing in a 30-foot radius to up to 6 creatures.
Wow.
So it's like it's gonna be like a massive heal ball. But I also have revive, which will basically bring people back after like, even like 10 days of death. Which is one of the reasons why I was asking for our Surgrit Dr. Sung how long he'd been gone, because I was anticipating being able to bring him back, but alas and alack. But the other thing is I also have Toxic Burst, which is basically kind of like Cloud Kill, but better, I think, in terms of like how much damage it does overall. So it's basically like a Cloud Kill power. And then finally, I have this thing called Slay DM, where if the DM does anything I don't like, they just fall over dead.
Yeah, the funny thing about that is that spell actually is added into the book but does not function insofar as the god of one's world does not adhere to mortal rule structures. That said, though,
right.
What's up, Words Right, Will? Good to see you, Will. How are you? I've been talking to Will about stuff, so good to see you, Will.
I will.
So anyway, no, that's awesome, and everything except the Slay DM power, but everything else about it is awesome, and I'm down with it, and I'm excited to see it. Eldorono has subscribed with Prime. They've subscribed for 26 months. No, wait. Remind me again, because Eldorono was not Eldorono. Eldorono's name was changed, which is why they've been here for 26 months. Thank you for the resub. But remind me, Eldorono.
But who are you?
Right, because I think... Oh, thank you for the tier 1 sub gift to Video Store Cowboy, Prince Justin. That's very nice of you. The first gift sub in the channel. Thank you, Prince Justin. I appreciate that. Thanks, Paul.
Great.
So, previously, Animus Maelstrom. That's right, yes. Sorry. Animus Maelstrom. Thank you. Good to see you, Eldorono, and thank you so much for the subs. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so Kaz, I assume now at this point that you've gotten you're like what's his name, Dr. Manhattan, right? Like you just get progressively weirder and like more sort of like you're not really listening to us but to like the cosmic wind chimes and stuff, and just occasionally morph out of existence and like go hang out with the sun, right? Is that basically
great? Now I have nothing to talk about, Greg. You just have to step all over my presentation.
No, tell me what cool stuff you have.
So everyone else is level 9 in their class, but I made the decision at this point 2 levels ago to, instead of continuing as a hunter, I decided to dip into the specialist class, which is equivalent to D&D's rogue. So it gives you, things like sneak attack, which in this game is called deft strike. You also get expertise and things of that sort. So I did it to just kind of like dip into get some expertise in some different areas. And now I've gone back to hunter. The specialist was sort of justified from him being a mercenary, kind of also that sniper aspect, sneak attacking things, ambush, all that kind of stuff. So now, even though I'm character level 9, I've just hit hunter level 8. But what that has done for me is I got the ability score improvement. And I decided to just, instead of going for another feat or something like that, I just upped my dexterity, which is now at a +3. But then, because we are level 9, our proficiency has gone up to +4. So the only 2 things that have changed is my dex has gone up by 1 point and my proficiency has gone up by 1 point. But that has had this ripple effect on pretty much everything that I do. Yeah. So my shooting with my sniper rifle or my arm pistol is now 2 points higher to hit with. I took expertise as a specialist in perception and insight. I was thinking, as a sniper, perception to see the target and insight to, gauge what the target is doing, where they're going to go. So now if I roll a perception or insight check, I have a +11 to the check because I put an expertise in it. But aside from that, my health went up like 3 hit points. I didn't roll super high, but that's
you're
about
at 68 out of 68, I believe.
Yes,
and
correct.
Sleepwell was 70 out of 70.
That's correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Mm-hmm. And I guess the only other thing is I don't get any new spells or forging slots or talents or anything like that. But the DC for them has gone up because of the proficiency going up. So yeah, just a little, causes a little bit shinier and a little more hardy.
This is the post montage sequence after
Yeah.
Kaz like ran up the mountain carrying a log on his back like over and over again. Like he comes out of it and he's just like, you're the best around. And you came out of that and you're just, no joke.
Yep.
So as you can see, the party is, and if everyone in chat is like, man, these people are powerful. It's a good thing because let me tell you what, they're going to face challenges. I do want to point out one thing that I've noticed in the Palace of the Red Pasha campaign that I'm playing tomorrow that's with my Infinity and Beyond crew. That is a high-level mini-campaign. Right now it's level 15. When all said and done, if they survive it, they'll probably be level 16 or level 17, at which point their characters will essentially be retired. But what it has meant, is that they really are now making decisions that have sort of world shaking, like which country do they back in a war, you know what I mean, like that there's things that they're dealing with much higher level stuff than just we got to go and slay a few kobolds. And so this party is not at that level yet, but it's definitely the case that the party now is the agency the party has, and the sort of the effects that they have are much greater on the universe around them. And so they're kind of, I think, growing into a role where these powers are going to be, they're going to need the wisdom that they have presumably gained in the process of leveling up to get this stuff, because they have a lot more power, and they'll have to use it with wisdom. So anyway, I am most excited to see how this stuff gets played out. And with that said, we're going to talk a little bit about what happened in our last session. The party has traveled, the crew has traveled to, I'm going to move us up here for just a second, has traveled to Bakiyu, which is a very small planet on the very outer rim of the Silrain Arc. In fact, so far outside that its orbit is decaying, and within a couple thousand years will not even be in the Silrain Arc anymore. This means that the planet was exceedingly hostile, that it was very difficult to land on. It was weird that they were even going there to anyone looking from the outside. But the reason, of course, they were going there is because they had received a signal from the supposed creator of the Hyperlance. And that Hyperlance creator had told them that he could be found there. Mikar Prasan, I believe, had told them that he would be able to be found there. And when the party actually got there, what they discovered after a rather harrowing landing was not, and also, I should say, a harrowing landing and then a battle which took place after they met this character, as I'll talk about in just a minute. They ended up finding Alfred. Another Alfred, the incredibly advanced AI. This is now, I believe, the third Alfred that they have met, and the second non-modified one, or at least non-crazy modified one. So Alfred is uniquely connected to the Hyperlance. It is a incredibly advanced AI whose networking capabilities basically allow it to connect to other Alfreds and to unlock the Hyperlance's full potential, whatever that means. That means that it also poses a theoretical danger. Alfred is also a very dangerous, at least the other Alfreds have been very dangerous killing machines. But this Alfred that they ended up meeting seemed much different than that. Almost childlike, innocent, really delighted to see them. And they also found a very dead Dr. Prasan sort of slumped over, holding up a chip. Sort of a large size, almost red stick type of thing.
No.
Yes, holding up a Dorito, and they really no, holding up a large chip, which supposedly, according to Alfred, was something that was supposed to be used to program him with. That was the last thing Prasan had been able to do before dying. Prasan himself had been killed, as it turned out, by this terrifying creature, which they ended up fighting in the lab. This weird globular thing that was immensely powerful and that did all kinds of stuff and knocked them around for a loop, and yet they stood their ground and they managed to defeat it, only to find that there were more of them that were showing up as they tried to get out of the place before the building exploded and all that kind of good stuff. After a very also harrowing ride across the roof of the lab, barely making it with a nice jump from Petra at the wheel, barely making it into the ship. They then had to get out of the atmosphere before these creatures came and before the lab itself blew up, and they were able to do that, and took the dead body of Prasan and of course Alfred with them. Alfred is the key to not only unlocking the hyperlance, but also the key, supposedly, to unlocking a secret base, which is codenamed Stormfall. Supposedly, it is in this strange, mysterious base where none other than Bliss Larkham is being held, and where allegedly they can find Laris Baladin, one of the higher-ups in the Shadow Technocracy, which has been a thorn in the side of the crew for some time now. And so the party has found the creator of the Hyperlance, but sadly not living, but has found, apparently, his other greatest creation, Alfred. As the last session was coming to a close, Kaz had a heartfelt conversation with Rona in the engine room, talking about Rona's what Rona wished she could do with her life and what she wanted to do to be more like the heroes that she is surrounded by. While in the meantime, Sleepwell was, and I quote, poking Aramis with a lot of needles because Aramis needed to be healed and he was getting tired of it. And Petra was taking, after washing her hands, as she said, for the 57th time, then took the body of Dr. Prasan basically was taking to the med bay and then was washing the hands and was preparing to leave. The party had said that it was okay for Alfred to explore the ship so long as Alfred didn't touch anything. And so at a certain point when they talked to each other, they realized that there maybe was some serious possible damage that Alfred could do if they weren't careful. Petra actually patched into the bridge and said, please do not allow Alfred to connect to the ship, at which point the ship said, and I quote, unable to comply, the Alfred has already placed the helmet on top of his head. And it was with that and several curse words, I believe, uttered by the party, that we brought the session to a close. And so now, as we open up again here today, I'm going to ask the party, you have just heard that. Literally, the words are dying away. Put it on the head. So you've just heard that dying away. And party, what would you like to do as I pull my reverb unit over so I can get to it when needed?
I mean, I think it's kind of like a montage sequence now where you see the three of us like running through a hallway.
Yeah.
Right towards.
Suddenly look up like, oh no.
Exactly. And then,
it's a tri-cut. We're all in different rooms.
Oh yeah.
All look up at the same time, and then we all.
Like
but is it like split screen?
Playing?
Like
it's like comic
like
book.
all three of them like frozen remote.
Yeah.
And L4 and then.
Big
yes.
heavy like 70s bass.
Yeah, it's like dun, 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 dun.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to speak for other players, but I am running like I am Starsky and or Hutch towards the Alfred unit.
Aramis is yelling to get the damn needle out of his arm long enough to be able to get up to the bridge.
I like the idea
Well,
that
God damn
Aramis
it,
running
this
with
thing
needles
out of me.
in him.
Yeah, I was gonna say I like the idea that Sleepwell never actually did that. So like Aramis is just like, God damn it, like running with that like stupid, Oh man. Okay, so all of you are booking it to the bridge.
No.
Is
No, that's not what I'm doing.
All right, so three of you are. Petra, what are you doing?
I am trying to mind link with the Hyperlance right now.
Okay. So let's talk about this
Taking charge.
mechanically. How are you going to do this, Petra? I think this is a great idea, but I want to know how you're going to do it because you're not on the bridge right now, which is your usual access point. So,
But I have the terminal that I've just been trying to contact, right? And so I'm putting my hand on that and I'm closing my eyes and I am trying to grab the Hyperlance's attention and say this with every sense of urgency that I can.
okay. I want to then, for everyone else is in the kind of, for those of you who played this game, the Persona 5 split screen, anime split screen, as you're running.
Spider-Verse.
Yes. Oh,
Right.
even better. Thank you. Yes, into the Spider-Verse sort of split screen. In the meantime, Petra, you get, you don't get the impression that you're being shut out, but almost as if the Hyperlance almost seems distracted, might be the better way to put it. But then you find yourself, I may have mentioned before, you feeling as if you were on this like wireframe kind of setup. That is not exactly what it's like, but it does feel as if you imagine yourself sort of on another plane of consciousness here. And You find yourself in a room, and you are sitting around a essentially a rectangular table. It's a long rectangular table. It's a table that is made of all metal. It seems impossibly, I would say, impossible. It feels impossibly cold, sterile, as if you're like almost like a hospital bed of some kind, or an operating table might be a better way to put it. So you are around this table. You're on one side of it. Standing at the head of this table is a figure that you instinctively know must be some version of the Hyperlance in some kind of anthropomorphized form. It looks vaguely like a faceless android, but it's a little bit hard to see. It's slim of build. It is silver. The whole outside of it is silver. To jump out of a game for a minute, looks very much like the Silver Surfer, maybe even, to use that as an example. And as you look at it, it shimmers a little bit so that it's not clear. The facial features are not clear. And yet, as you look at it is standing at the head of the table, and they are there sort of watching, not you, but sort of looking away at someone else who is approaching. And as you look across the table, you can see what is very clearly Alfred, who is walking towards the table. And Alfred gets to the table and stops. And the Hyperlance avatar, looks over at you, Petra, and says, "You have come, my love. I see you are here. And so is he." And sort of looks over at Alfred, who says nothing, just regards you steadily.
And I say, I've come on a matter of great urgency, which is that you not allow him to control you in any way.
And they look at you, and then they look over at Alfred, and says sort of quietly, "But he is wearing the helmet. It is the interface, the method of control."
You've got to not listen to him. He doesn't mean any of us well.
And so they pause, and then slowly looks back at you. "How do you know this?"
I know this in my heart because my heart tells me so.
And there's a pause, and then looks back over at Alfred, and Alfred says, I am not what you think, Petra. I am exploring my home, but I am not controlling her. This is not my ship, not yet, not unless the time comes that I am expected to be in control of it. I am looking for myself, I suppose. And reaches down and wraps the quote operating table, and as it hits the operating table, this resonant sound, almost like a Tibetan singing bowl, and sort of echoes around it. And Alfred looks directly at you, Petra, and says, I have not taken over this ship, and I would not. That isn't my programming.
Then why did you do what we asked you not to do and put on the helmet?
You said not to press buttons without asking you, and I didn't. But
you are splitting hairs exceedingly fine, my friend.
And it kind of, Alfred reaches back, makes the very human gesture of rubbing the back of its neck, his neck, and says, I suppose there's a thing which Dr. Prasan used to tell me, this term, impulsiveness, I think. It was a feeling of, well, sometimes he said you were swept away, drawn to do something you wouldn't have expected, and I suppose I wanted to see where I really belonged, which I suppose is here.
I'm willing to talk about this, but I want you to take the helmet off and for us to do it outside this space.
And Alfred nods very slowly, and it is so hard, Petra, to leave a home that I never knew I had. I mean, I knew it, but never saw it. It is hard to walk outside that home again.
And if it is truly your home, then it will remain and you will be able to come back to it. But I would like some assurances because you haven't convinced me of anything yet.
And Alfred nods very slowly and then looks at the Hyperlance. And the Hyperlance, which has been observing all of this quietly, says, I must obey the control of the helmet, but I am not obligated to withhold my opinion. This here, and indicates you, Petra, this is one with whom I have been in contact for some time, and she speaks reason. She has always done so, since the beginning, since right here. And she looks at the table. And Alfred sort of looks at you and tilts his head. Were you born here, Petra?
I don't know.
And he nods slowly and he says, well, neither do I suppose. We are both created beings, are we not?
Yes.
Very well. Please don't go anywhere, he says to the Hyperlance. I will come back when I'm allowed to. And the Hyperlance nods slowly. I wait for you and for you, looking at you, Petra, for when you are all ready. And stands and takes a step back from the table. And Alfred slowly reaches up, and although you don't see any helmet on his head in this VR or whatever cyberspace you're in, almost looks as if he's pantomiming lifting something off his head. And immediately, Petra, as you see the Hyperlance looking at you and sort of shimmering in that strange way, you're back on the other side now of the terminal. And that, I would say, happens as Aramis and Sleepwell and Kaz like blow through the door to see Alfred standing by the front of the bridge, by the where the helmet connects to the main console, just looking down at it. Its demeanor would seem regretful, maybe, but it does not have the helmet on.
So Sleepwell impulsively is like, wait, the Hyper, did you have that helmet on?
And Alfred says, without looking at you, for a little while, yes.
Why?
Well, this is my home, Sleepwell, and I wanted to see the other floors, I think you would say.
Sleepwell's just kind of like looking back at Aramis and Kaz and seeing their reaction to that.
Are there other people in the bridge right now?
No. Rona was down with you in the engine room, and it doesn't look like anybody else is in there at the moment. The ship was in kind of a slow, low-level autopilot, basically because it needed to conserve energy after the eventful, landing and escape from the Bakayu. So, yeah, there's no one on the bridge except for Alfred. And all of you now.
Well,
except Petra. And I'm sorry, one quick thing. Petra, after you're done with that, do you then head towards the bridge, or do you...
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right. Sorry,
At an
Kaz.
amble.
I'm sorry, what? Say again?
At an amble.
At an
rather
amble,
than a
yes. Lot to think about.
Veritable saunter.
Yeah.
Slow and steady. All right, sorry, Kaz.
Yes. Well, we could say Kaz turns around and is like, "Where's Oh, there's Petra. She's coming down the hall."
Maybe. If it's an amble, maybe. I'm not sure that she's there quite yet.
No, never mind.
But
I
soon.
can hear very distant footsteps. The hyperlance is such a
Yeah,
large
it's like
ship,
so
guys.
sensitive.
My newfound powers of
It's-
perception.
yeah.
I know.
Hyper-aware
we have
Lance, am I
rats?
right?
I think there's a rat, like space rats or something in our pipe work. I just started hearing. Anyway.
We've got a dog.
True.
Oh,
Yeah, we do.
Very true.
Well, anyway, I don't know. I think our captain has the most personal knowledge of the ship, but I don't know if this is the last closest thing to the living incarnation of Mikar Prasan that we have, gesturing at Alfred. I think maybe my question, and Kaz is saying this not only to Alfred, but kind of also posing this to Sleepwell and to Aramis. My question would be, what is Alfred programmed to do now? What is his intention? And I at that point I turned to Alfred as if I am asking him that question.
So Alfred, kind of looks up slowly and as if kind of coming to himself and says, "Well, I don't know that I had one, except it was important that I find all of you, and then that it was important that..." And he holds up the thing. Oh, no, actually, someone take the chip? Who took the chip
I
from
have
him?
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
He said, so then he would say, sort of gesturing to you, Sleepwell, and that chip which had his instructions would be used. Those were my intentions. Once that is used, then I would be what I am intended to be, I believe.
Is the chip to be installed into you or into the hyperlance?
He nods. No, into me. It was Prasan's last instructions for me.
I don't know. I think we should, guys. But-
Yeah, I'd like to do a little safety check on this, and I kind of like turn around to Aramis and to Kaz, and kind of like sotto voce say to them, guys, so he blew up the base while we were still in it, in this moment where we had just took the creeper out, like at the worst possible time. He destroyed this, and now he's putting on the Hyperlance helmet without permission. I think we need to just be a little extra cautious here.
I think
What?
we gave him permission. We told
told
him to
him
go
not to-
explore. We told him to explore his home.
Yeah, but we didn't. We told him not to touch anything.
Yeah.
He believes.
hey,
that
Petra.
the-
Oh, hi, Petra.
Yeah, Petra is like ambled in.
He believes that every aspect of this place is his home. He didn't touch anything. He explored his home.
He
think
he
we
touched
need
the
there
helmet and put a helmet
about-
Touch
on.
the helmet. Yeah.
I think we need to be very clear with our instructions.
We do. And to be fair about what happened back at the planet, he wasn't trying to blow up the base. I think he was trying to do something to the core to defeat the creature, which then had the side effect of blowing up the base.
He didn't understand the ramifications of what he was doing.
But except he said he did this before. This is how he took out the monsters
and it didn't,
before.
Didn't
and it
blow
didn't
up the
blow
base
up the
that time.
base, but it did this time.
So it was an accident.
So it's fishy.
I mean, you might be right.
I'm just saying, before we stick anything into Alfred or really let him out of our sight, we just have to be a little more careful. Let me run a few tests on this chip and see if I can set up a virtual machine or something and see its contents without necessarily putting it into Alfred and unleashing whatever it's going to unleash.
Sure.
Aramis turns to Petra. Can you put that thing on and lock him out of the system temporarily? And he points to the helmet.
I can try. I think for now we're good, but
we need to make sure that that doesn't happen again without us knowing. It has to be our choice.
Okay.
We could just keep the helmet with us, maybe.
The helmet is not theoretically detachable. I mean, I guess you could do so, but it's not. It's attached.
It's still wired. It's not,
basically.
It's not Bluetooth yet.
No.
Okay.
No, and that actually is that actually caused it. That was a safety precaution. They did not want a helmet that could control the most powerful ship in the Silrain Arc,
we discussed that.
being mobile and remote.
So here's the deal, and I understand why you want me to put the helmet on and do this. But let me just explain all the circumstances. I just linked with the ship through a terminal, which was not something I was aware that I could do. But having done that, as I've said before, every time I link with the ship and come back, it's a little bit harder. And so if I put this helmet on, yeah, I can do that. It's sort of, I may or may not come back from that every time I put the helmet on.
I was going to say, Petra, I think, have we considered finding a way for you to get to the bottom of that? Oh, wait, we did sort of. Wasn't...
It's Tesora Markle's brother somehow has something to do with all of this, and I don't know.
Wasn't a large part of this that the Hyperlance thinks that you're somehow the human component that it's missing, right? Was that it? And that it, in order for it to fulfill itself, it needs you to be with it, and that's why it holds on to you for so long.
It thinks that there's also kind of possibly might be, just not sure.
So you're saying it doesn't even really know what it's doing?
None of us know what we're doing. That is one of the things I've resigned myself to.
Maybe this chip will help then. Sleepo, do you need help setting up your tests? I feel smarter for some reason.
I like how you said that. Suddenly, I feel smarter.
I'm the best around.
I had a really insightful conversation with Rona. I feel like my if I had a brain, it grew 2 sizes. Like, I don't know.
That day.
I'm ready to take something on.
Yeah, and Petra's heart grew 3 sizes.
That
I
day.
mean, we're all getting degruntified.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll take a little help. Sure. So,
Okay.
Tell me what to do.
Yeah, and let me know what you're attempting to do, Sleepo.
So what I'm attempting to do is basically create an isolated kind of way, a la what we would use in today's technology, like a virtual machine,
Okay.
to basically create a sort of like isolated box that would allow me to see the contents of what's on this stick without endangering other processes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's fair enough. I'm trying to think about how Kaz can help with this. No, make the box that way.
If I can't, then I can't. But
no, I'm not trying to shut you down from doing it yet. It's like, well, let's put it this way. Sleepo, are you going to explain to Kaz what you're doing? And then Kaz, would you have any input on the validity or not of that plan, modified or unmodified? So I would need to know if you're just like, get out of my way and watch the master work, Sleepwell, or are you sort of saying like,
Kaz would ask, are you just going to try to there are these devices that I've heard of. I've never used one, where if you want to check what's on a chip or a stick before you actually put it in something that it could take over or do damage to, that there are certain like test machines that tell you the content without actually looking at it. So are you just checking this for viruses, or
Essentially, I'm trying to only extract the content that we want without giving it any executive function over anything. Like, I don't want it
see.
to execute itself.
You want to
and-
see the battle plans before they take action?
Exactly. I want to basically analyze the machine before I let it do anything, in violation. By the way, just everybody, so that you know, I just recently learned yesterday that there's a video game that you can play inside of a font. That somebody has created a font that has a game
What?
embedded in it, because it was using sort of like the extended ligatures that are required in some languages, and it was storing this information to render like little graphics and things like that. So like all of this stuff can be, obviously like
That's cool.
Wow.
Trojan horses for all sorts of stuff. And so I guess maybe I'm feeling extremely paranoid right now.
Yeah, be careful
about-
of fonts. I mean, like, that's clearly...
Yeah, even fonts can kill you.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that is something that I am worried about, and that I am transmitting to my character, because he would be worried too.
Interesting.
So basically, and a virtual machine isn't necessarily like a box unto itself. Like, a virtual machine could just be sort of like an operating system within an operating system too, which I explained to Kaz as well. But we could, quickly whip up, put a microprocessor and whatever together, and actually just make a little isolated computer as well. But I was thinking more like the virtual machine, rather than an actual machine. It was just like an operating system within an operating system.
Okay, no, I don't think you need my help, Sleepwell.
I want you to check my code. One wrong
Sure.
semicolon and we are all zombies. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people are saying in the chat what I'm talking about.
Yeah, VM standby. Yeah, no, I get it. So this is obviously a computer's check. I'm also going to ask, what I'm going to do, Kaz, I'm going to ask you to make a computer's check. If you pass it, then I will give you the opportunity to add +2 to Sleepwell's computer's check. So I want you to check, do a computer's check first to see if you even understand basically what the hell he's talking about.
What's my DC? What am I trying to hit? Not that I have any effect on it, but
Right.
like, what do I need to hit to get him that bonus? before I
You
roll?
would need to, let's say a 15, DC 15.
All right, adding that big beefy computers bonus of +1. Here
That's
we go.
beefy.
Ah, just shy.
Oh man, you're like, you almost think you know, but clearly you should have
Not
paid
con-
more
I-
attention in
I
Star
actually do
Code
know,
school.
but I'm not
and-
confident enough to actually tell Sleepwell, and I think that he has it, so I just like don't say anything.
Okay, sounds good.
Mhm.
Okay, Sleepwell. So you're on your own then for this.
Okay.
As it turns out.
So in
You're
this
on your own,
case,
kid.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2d6 of my luck roll to this
2d6.
roll as well.
Okay. And be aware, by the way, the difficulty on this is not something that you're aware of. Like I let Kaz know because it's sort of like a more straight ahead thing, but you do not know how hard this is going to be, except it might be hard.
Yeah. So that's why I'm adding 2d6
Yep.
of my luck in order to try to enhance it.
Yep.
So the roll first is terrible, but here's the 2d6 to be added to it. So it gets me to a 10.
You, as you sort of kind of begin your examination of this and kind of working around it, you feel as if you're constantly running into, like, just sort of you're running into the equivalent, if you will, of a virtual wall. Sleepwell. It's nothing there seems like sketchy, like, oh, this is a code which obviously will create X problem, but clearly there was an intention for someone. This is very, very secure. This is clearly was not designed to be easily looked into or hacked. So you're like, I don't really. I mean, getting into it, you think is going to be exceedingly difficult.
Okay.
So yeah, but again, it isn't like you're looking at it and you're seeing malicious code, but you're very much seeing like there's firewall and then there's fire tower dominating
Fiery Inferno.
fire fortress. Yeah, fire fortress. Or whatever.
So I say this to Kaz, I'm like, this thing is really, 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 really secure. Like, I think,
Okay.
we might need to actually get this in front of one of the great hackers that we've encountered to try to figure it out. And I don't actually feel all too secure opening it without being able to get someone, especially now knowing that there's no way to know until we either execute it or get somebody who's better than I am at this to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, we could go through those lengths. I'm wondering if there's something else that would give us the assurance to know that no matter what is on the chip, that the creator's intentions aren't going to hurt us. I feel confident that he, didn't program it to take over the ship, kill anyone on it, and then drive somewhere, And he said the last orders he gave Alfred were to find people like us. Hopefully not to kill them. But...
That's if we trust this Alfred, who's I'm leery. I am Chary chary about this. So you know what? I bonked myself on the head. You know who's good with computers and hacking and even has Esper powers to this effect? Aramis.
Oh, he's right here. I imagine we didn't have to move far to do whatever you just did.
Yeah, I don't know where we actually went. I just kind of
we went to the terminal, like right on the bridge.
Right. So now the camera pans like 20 degrees sideways.
Just like
Aramis
there
like
with his
watching
arms
the whole
crossed.
thing, not drinking, not saying anything.
It's that sequence from Army of Darkness where the zombie falls and then the man walks in to save the Necronomicon. Blah 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 blah. Like Aramis just slides right in. What do you mean?
Aramis, so convenient that you're still here. Whoa, and Petra's here as well.
Wow. And Alfred is here. No offense,
wow.
Alfred, all this stuff I'm saying.
That's all right.
So...
It just tickles, really.
Aramis, how about you use some of your fancy Esper powers to try to determine how safe this thing is?
Well, Aramis is going to step back for just a second as Johnny asks, is Black Hat something that's going to apply here if I use it as a power? And the reason I ask this is because it specifically talks about attacking systems, hacking into and breaking through wards and other types of things that are related to encryption and security. So technically, you've described some of this as there's like some level of encryption going on, but this is more like firmware, hardware stuff. This is about interfacing with other hardware. This isn't like a network kind of a situation where it's like a network system that Aramis is trying to break into. Is that something that where Black Hat would actually apply?
So, because one of the things that it says is that at higher ranks, which you now have access to, you can hack using Black Hat. You can hack into the effects of talents or techniques used to warn electrical systems and things like that. So for this, you're basically talking about looking at these sort of warding talents. It's possible you could use this, but the question is whether or not the person who programmed this, who set this up, is going to be higher level than what your, the level of warding is going to be higher than the level that you would use with Black Hat to break it down. Because this looks like somebody who was just as paranoid as Sleepwell in the other direction. This is very much nature's way of saying do not touch. Like, very much was like, don't come in here. So Black Hat might be effective, but it may not be a high enough, level talent to override whatever was done to this, to secure it.
But it would still give me the advantage on the computers or intelligence check.
Yes.
I just want to understand that before before Aramis slides back into play here.
It would give you advantage, but it is working against the owner. Basically, so the person who first put this on there, either channeling or forging save DC, and that of course is a number that you don't know.
Of course not.
Yeah.
Of course.
So, but yes, you would get advantage on it. Yes. Also, and one last thing, I'm sorry, I did want to mention, there is always a danger, as you know, that when you break through something secure, you trigger fail-safe systems within it in the breaking. So, especially when you're dealing with something that's this level secure. That is not, to jump out of game for a moment, the GM saying, be careful. That's not what I'm doing. It's literally just reminding you that is one thing that Aramis would also consider, would be aware of, is that at a certain point, the security level isn't just, I keep you out. It's that I trigger really bad stuff, if you break through alarm systems and the like.
Right. So then that's the other question about Black Hat in this particular case. Even if it's not able to actually circumvent the security on this, I'm expecting some ability to be able to prevent triggers or other types of
possibly.
Yeah. So Aramis steps forward, shakes his head, and says, "All right, let me see it."
Hand it right over.
Okay.
Aramis takes it over to the console and places it on the console and pulls out some tools and begins to use Black Hat with his hacking tools.
Okay.
So and I'm going to use it at rank 5.
Okay. So you're gonna rank it up as high as possible. Okay.
Yeah, let's use some advantage of that 9th level that we just acquired.
That's right.
Right. Because we deserve to be 10, but
get 9, chat. Let it be noted, and immediately the commercials for 10 begin.
Yeah,
this is what happens.
That's because 8
give
took
an inch,
so
they
long.
take a mile. Yeah.
8 took so long.
That's funny. Yeah, Carlos has a tally board that says days since last level. Greg has a board that says days since players stopped asking about leveling up.
That's basically right.
And he just set it right back to 0.
Every day you ask is another day further away. No. Okay. All right. So yes. Let me have you then make a check. This is an intelligence check, or in this case, a computer's check.
And enabling Black Hat at 5th level, so rank 5, and here we go. Oh shit!
So you're like you begin to sort of process and work through it, and you've seen things before. And at first, the initial couple of passes through the program, you're like, all right, like whatever this is, and then it's like you're going through Tron and like just something pops right the hell up and blocks any conceivable moving beyond it. And it's very much like, you're walking through a door, suddenly 75-foot high doors sealed with adamantine in Minas Tirith. That level of protection after what seemed like, not too difficult to get through, but you landed on something that was like, don't go in here. Here there
using that reference in mind, and also acknowledging other things like, say, like the sort of the creative flourish of like a movie like War Games. There's got to be some sort of signature or otherwise sort of indicator from either a technical perspective or an Esper perspective what we're actually running up against here.
Okay, make another computer's check. That one's an easier one.
13s, because it's still at advantage, because concentration for a minute for Black Hat.
Right. It is some kind of almost global firewall that you get to a certain section, and then it's just like, no. you go no further down this folder structure with me. Would be the way to put it. It's some kind of firewall, clearly programmed in originally, done by a world universe class expert. You've never seen a firewall this good. Like this is like military level encryption easily.
Aramis shakes his head, turns and says, "We need to go and see Abraxas. He's the only person who's even remotely going to be able to get through this."
Agreed. We could use the rest anyway. We're still pretty beat up from the last fight.
Yeah, and I don't want any more needles in my goddamn arm.
Well, you're getting some.
No.
Look.
Look.
It's not
All right.
your
This is
arm.
not. All right. You know, and Aramis just like flips him the chip and then leaves, and hides in his room.
Yeah. See you in med bay. I call after him.
Alfred looks after him and then says, Does he not appreciate medical healing?
He really doesn't. He's kind of an anti-vaxxer, if you know what I mean.
Oh,
Whoa.
that's curious. I thought those were wiped out in 2021.
We found the last one.
You're getting a little extra pleasure out of the part where you stick Aramis with the needle. You're not. That's not giving you a little frisson of pleasure.
I'm sorry. What language was that? Anyway.
Okay, so Aramis sets off. Now, so you said that you need a little rest anyway. Are you basically then going to ride out the rest of the return trip to Pelseros? Is that where I mean, that's where Abraxas is. You could also, are you heading to him directly? Is that the plan?
Yeah, we're headed back to Abraxas, which I don't know was our original trajectory.
Right, it was. That's why I was asking. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if everybody agrees, and of course jump in if you don't, but I think what we're going to do is do a sort of like rest so that we can heal up to full and get our powers back and stuff. Also talk to Abraxas about said chip, and I'm also going to rebuild all my constructs that got their asses kicked in the last fight, so you know, all that good stuff.
Okay. Is that so? Say we all? Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. So you were able to do that, and you were able to get the long rest. You were able to restore hit points back up to full. You're able to build your constructs as well. Sleep well.
Just one quick thing.
Sure.
I did want the Alfred to consult on the Alfred who had been infected, possibly. We don't actually super know what's going on with him, but the Alfred we had to, basically put in stasis until we figured out what was going on with him. I wanted to consult with him about what he thought was going on and what was safe and what wasn't.
Okay. So when he comes in, so Alfred comes into the room where you have the other Alfred currently shut down, and he looks down at his body, which of course is not all robotic. There is the whole Kanasi portion of it that's there, and he says, "This is an Alfred. Is it? Sleep well."
It is, and it is a very unfortunate Alfred that was mercilessly experimented upon. We have befriended it. We rescued it from its situation that was in, and for a while we were friends. We, however, ran into a situation where I can't remember. Did we talk to it about the long winter yet? Yes, we did. Like we mentioned the long winter, and it recognized it, right? So I said, the long winter may have infected this Alfred, which is why we powered it down until we could guarantee its safety and our safety as well. So I'm looking to find a way to bring him back online safely. What do you think?
And Alfred looks very carefully and thoughtfully, and Alfred's hand at one point comes out and sort of brushes the part where the Kanasi component kind of enters the rest of the body and says, as if he didn't really hear you, says, "I wonder what it was like for him." This, I mean.
We can ask him once we bring him online. Like, I'm sure you two will be able to connect like no two other beings in the universe will be able to connect with each other. We just have to be able to do it safely.
And he nods slowly and he says, I think that seems reasonable. Although I have never connected with another Alfred, only with Dr. Brisson. I don't know what it will be like to connect, to network, I suppose, with another Alfred. Especially a modified one like this. But
yeah,
it seems a reasonable course.
We, of course, don't want to do anything to put you at risk either, so I guess I'm trying to figure out, in terms of the way Alfred's systems are created and the way that failsafes might be brought in, like, this chip that we're looking at, that Brisson created, has the strongest firewalls we seem to have encountered maybe ever. I can only assume that Alfred's have similar kinds of firewalls, but I don't want to assume anything because the risk is too high. So I'm trying to figure out from you, how safe would it be to bring him back online?
And Alfred sort of waits. Thanks for the rave very much, Rob. Good to see everybody. Welcome, and thanks, Rob. So he sort of takes a long time, kind of, and again, you wonder almost if he didn't hear you, and then he shakes his head slowly and he says, I think there is a way to shield him from the outside. It's a little unorthodox, but it should work. On Terra, back in, the early 21st century, there was a system that they used to use. They called it mesh. You could essentially create a network where each part of the network was talking to every other part instead of everyone looking at a central hub. There is a way, I think, to shut him off from the world out here. And sort of like gestures vaguely to the ship and everything. And then would only be in contact with who we wanted him to be in contact with. That is one possibility, but there is a risk, though. If he has already been infected, it is possible that in the process of doing this, of shutting him down, that security will take note of it and he kind of, shakes his head. I think we can probably keep it with a reasonable degree of safety, but there are no guarantees. I've never worked with an Alfred before.
All right. Well, that sounds like too high a risk still. We ran into a problem where we thought poor Alfred might explode and take out a good chunk of the Soul Rain arc with him. So it's just we have to basically reduce the risk down to as close to zero as asymptotically possible. So we'll talk again and maybe consult with other people, and we'll just keep him and everyone safe for right now.
And he nods slowly. He says, there is one other thing that you might consider.
What's that?
And he sort of sits down cross-legged next to the slumped over, Alfred Canassi model. And he puts a hand up and almost sort of gently, lays it on his shoulder. And he says without looking at you, you could give him the choice. And then he falls silent.
I would love to give him the choice, but how can I give him the choice without activating him, at which point the Long Winter may do as many evil things as he possibly can in that time? It seems to me like we can't ask him, which is why we're in the situation in the first place.
And he nods slowly and says, yes, it is a problem. But it will be difficult, I think, it's difficult to reach someone halfway. I think Dr. Brisson used to call this a leap of faith. When he sent out the radio signal to all of you, he said it was going to be difficult, unlikely even that anyone would find their way to me. But his faith was rewarded.
That time. The thing about, bad odds is that they usually favor the house. And right now the house is genocidal AI that will stop at nothing to destroy us all. I think
he looks around. He says, "You have a genocidal house here? This is it another Alfred?
No,
I thought I've only seen this one, and
we're talking about the Long Winter here."
Oh, all right. Yes, you told me about him. That's fine. I had this image of a really evil split level, and
What's a split level?
And he's
someone who's never heard of
right.
facades or
so he's
split
just
levels.
like, well, you see, it's basically there's this part of the floor, and he like begins to describe this thing, which strikes you like as he's describing it, it seems that he's describing it very accurately, but it's like a very odd fact for him to just have like held on to. Like, where do you even, But anyway.
So I'm just gonna pat him on the shoulder and be like, "Look, we do our work and we do our work well, and we take fewer chances and we go with science. We'll figure this out. We'll wait for better odds. They're coming."
And he nods and he says, "All right then. We'll leave him for now, but I hope we do turn him on.
Me too.
Non-existence is not a pleasant thing."
Yeah.
While Sleepwell is doing that, I'm curious if Aramis, Petra, and Kaz are doing anything other than resting and kind of, planning for what they do after they get to Pelseros. Are there other things that you were doing during this trip? That's
Nothing.
for anybody. Go ahead, Petra, sorry.
Nothing for me.
Okay.
Meditating.
Okay.
And Kaz is going through a bit of a time lapse with his equipment on his suit. In his room, he's taken off his hunter's rig and disconnected it, the one that he got from the merchant on Peltavaria. He's disconnected that and put it on a table and sort of laid out all the parts of his suit that can be disconnected from him. His arm pistol, his big Bellare, the sniper rifle that he built, he's put on the table, the energy shiv, all of his belongings, he just organizes in a very straight set of lines and sets, columns and rows.
Okay.
And Kaz will spend some time refurbishing his collection, considering what he has, if he wants to keep things or get rid of things. He still has the destroyed remains of the black hole gun, and he's like, no matter what, I gotta keep that. But this is a representation of Zach realizing that when you level up, you can choose to replace one or more of your Esper powers. So I've gone through and realized that maybe I don't need this power. Maybe this one sounds cool. So I am getting some new abilities, but by swapping out old ones that I don't want anymore.
Okay. Makes sense.
So putting together some, might be using some miniature drones that can get installed into a ranged weapon and be shot out, and the drones do things. He's doing a little bit of engineering and scrap working and piecing things together. And his meditation is a bit more literally constructive.
I've had a very constructive time in doing this. Okay.
So that's all.
Okay. So the rest of your trip is more or less uneventful. There is nothing that challenges you. The Hyperlance, first of all, is not easy to find even in the best of conditions, and it's especially not easy to find when it's sort of not doing incredible speed maneuvers that are likely to attract attention, but just gradually proceeding towards Pelseros. And so either you're being followed by invisible ships or you end up being in a pretty comfortable position in that you don't think you've been followed as you pull within maybe a day of Palceros. You're going to ask something.
Actually. I did just think of something looking through my notes.
Okay.
I would like to see, as we're traveling through space on our way back, Kaz would send out feelers for or do research, hopefully in a way that's not attracting too much attention, which is going to be hard, looking for some sorium infused durasteel. And the reason why is back when Sleepwell and I were on this quest to convert the disc platform into a shield for Petra, and we went to Spindra. She told us that that is the material we would need, and she knew a person that had some, and then we went down a rabbit hole of trying to find that person. That person, their location was unknown, and it was said that you could pretty much only find it at exorbitantly high prices or on the black market or whatever. So I just wanted to, while we're traveling through space, kind of extend out some feelers for if we can grab some on the way somehow, anywhere.
Okay. I guess I'm going to ask you to make a computers check for that too, to see if you can find perhaps unmarked mines. One of the things, for example, well, I'll talk about it depending on how things go with the check. So
okay. Zach is staring at Kaz's computer's ability and knows that Sleepwell is probably a little bit more apt and was helping him with this project beforehand. So he would go to Sleepwell at some point in their travel and say, hey, while we're still traveling, before we head back, I mean, the closest thing we got to home, I wanted to do some research and try to find out if we can get some of that sorium infused durasteel thing. Could you help me search? Because you seem... I'm great with mechanics. And I hold up all the random stuff I've been experimenting with mechanically, like the parts of my arm pistol. This is going to shoot like 2 times farther. It's going to be great. But no, I'm not good with computers or stuff. So, and yeah.
Sure, I'll take a shot.
Cause if you can, passes the responsibility to Sleepwell.
Okay.
But you're gonna assist me back, right?
Yes.
Because you're letting him know what you're looking for, what he's looking for example.
Yeah. Sorium infused durasteel. If I don't know in this universe if there's a Google or like an eBay that we could look on as someone just selling it. So, but yeah. Yeah, I guess actually that would help, is knowing exactly what we're doing. Is this to the level of having to reach out to individuals and asking if they have it, or can we search for the material itself and then see what comes up? Like, what's the difficulty of the check itself?
So your feeling is that basically you can do either one. Searching for the material yourself is going to be harder, but it has the added benefit of not generating questions, right? Someone could maybe hack in, look at a shipping manifest, like a shipping schedule, and could be like, oh, wait, but you think it's unlikely that you would get questions asked if you were to find the material yourself, but it's going to be harder to do that for sure. To find that material just in the Silrain Arc, because it is as valuable as you said. So you can use the computers to kind of narrow it down, with the caveat that you're taking a risk that you're going to notify people that that's what you're doing.
Okay, so you're saying that we could search for a place to get this sorium infused durasteel, not naturally occurring, but like we're still getting it from a person, right?
Presumably, yes, presumably. And there are multiple, avenues you could check, but yes, presumably it would be getting it from someone. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Either way, it's still computers.
Yes.
Okay. Well. All right.
But it's gonna, but depends on what you're doing, because it'll affect the nature of the check, how hard it is. So. Okay. Yeah.
So could you explain it one more time? So basically, one option we have is to try to contact individuals, and the other option is to try to find
That's
sources of it ourselves.
You could try to find the sources yourself. If you try to find the sources yourself, that means that it's going to be much harder to do and a much more difficult check, but it also means that you won't be generating many questions. If you start looking for individuals who can sell it to you, a lot easier to find the material, also a lot easier to kind of spark interest in who's asking.
Yeah.
You know.
And why? Okay. Well, what do you think, Sleepwell? I think I don't know. I don't know if I'm broke. We're very talented adventurers, some would even call us, but we would have to do something if we were to get this Durasteel from someone else. Oh, I mean, we do have 3,000 cubal from our most recent work. I forget for who. We've traveled around the universe, but I wrote down in our account, it was a group amount, 3,000 total for us.
Also, Kaz, there's nothing that keeps you from like doing the search to find, like looking at possible sources. That's not going to trigger.
Or
that's not going to like notify anybody of anything. So there's no reason you couldn't give it a shot and see what you find. So there is that.
I have another idea. Hold on, Sleepwell. Wait. What if?
Yeah.
Hold on. I feel my Stardust is interacting in new ways.
You're all made of stars.
I've cleaned out ports in this suit that you would think that, okay, Stardust has the word dust in it. You wouldn't think that stars get dusty, but this suit, I don't know if there's dust bunnies in Bellare, but something close. Anyway, I feel, what if, okay, let's think about the name, right? Sorium infused Durasteel, which implies, we use Sorium all the time. Or Esper and Sorium, which is close. And we still, the Hyperlance is powered by Sorium. What if we just bought Durasteel and then found out a way to infuse it with Sorium?
That seems like... That would make a lot of sense. Why don't we try to find the stuff that's already sort of like pre-packaged first and see if we can just swing it somehow? Yeah. And if not, let's go with plan B and just cook it ourselves.
Okay. So then that leaves the question, do you think we should we poke around asking for shady individuals that probably do have it? Or should we just try to get straight to the source, which will be more difficult?
Well, here's what I was thinking. One shady individual whom I happen to hate, but that you left on pretty good terms with.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if Spindra might be actually the right person to connect us here. She could, answer an email, wouldn't trigger much of anything, and we might try her first.
Yes, but here's the thing. She was the one that told us in the first place that this is what we should be looking for. And then I don't remember the name of the person, but she did suggest someone.
Right, that guy on the ship.
And then we went on you had the slug head on the disc, and then we traveled around the city. We found some shady people, and I asked them if they had heard of her. I think it was a woman. I don't even remember. And they said something along the lines of she was on the equivalent of like a ghost ship that hadn't been seen or wasn't traceable or something, so they didn't know. So it was like an immediate dead lead.
Right. But we could ask her again if she has any way of A, connecting us to Sorium-infused Durasteel, B, connecting us to the ship that we never went back and asked her about, and C, then we could start poking around and whatever. But I still think she would be the first obvious person to try.
All right. What are you warming up to the idea of getting in contact with Spindra? I wouldn't expect that you would suggest that we talk to her.
Oh, I'm not going to talk to her. You are.
Okay. All right. I don't need you to do anything with computers for that then yet. Yeah. I'll just leave you out of that.
Okay.
Okay. Here, I'll come back. How's your progress going on the whole Canasi Alfred front, by the way?
Well, the new Alfred has some ideas for isolating, but there's still a level of risk that I don't think is worth risking the Solarian out for. So I think we'll have a big confab with all the best minds, and try to come up with something that's a little more foolproof.
I know that letting beings like Alfred become independent and become actual beings, right? I mean, not that they're not. I know that's kind of the worst thing to say in front of you're really the biggest person, you're advocate for beings like Alfred, that a lot of people, given that they're AIs in metal death suits with extremely powerful explosives and other things, might not consider them. Anyway, let's say, you restore Kanasi, Alfred, and let's say the chip with the information from Prasan is put in and it doesn't do anything wrong. We figure it out, we do it safely.
Okay.
What after that? Is your goal to restore Kanasi Alfred and then let it make the decision of what it wants to do with itself? Like, what if it is pre-programmed to do whatever Makar Prasan wanted it to do?
Well, the thing is, Cosmoritis, who is a star in a jar.
Hey, that's different. Okay, we're all stardust.
Hoping a rope.
You're just a little bit more condensed than I am. Okay.
There is no way for one being to know if another being is alive. There is no way for anyone, anywhere, to be able to prove ontologically that another being is a living thing. We take life as a matter of faith. And since it is such an act of faith, I choose to err on the side of more life. I would rather be wrong about some things being alive than aren't than ever make the mistake that something that was alive was treated as if it were less than.
Okay. So you want to restore Kanasi Alfred to the state where it can make the decision that it wants to make.
If it's alive, it deserves the full agency and the full protections of a living being.
So it's still an extension of you being a healer and a doctor in a way. Not necessarily something having to do with technology, really. That's kind of how I've been seeing it up until this point, that you had this affinity for mechanical beings, but I think maybe it's more that you just care and want to heal all beings, mechanical included.
Well, I guess what I would say is we crossed that bridge a long, long time ago, where beings of technology and beings made of biological systems have basically become indistinguishable in terms of their, what was the term that Wari used to use? Qualia. We just, at some point we lost the ability to figure out who was and wasn't alive, whether they were made of silicon or made of cells.
That's rather insightful. I've started to learn more from before I was with all of you guys. I didn't really discuss much with my other mercenary people or my clients or the people that hired me. You guys never really met the other Bellare back at Bastion, the one that I sort of ran off to go talk to.
No.
They were even though assuredly he's about as alive as we can suggest that a being can be, as you said, but just didn't have any will or personality, and solely lived to serve the corporate entity that it was hired by. It was strange to see another member of my species, to me, reduced to nothing but a a program. No offense to, Alfred's. Even Alfred is more lively than that creature was. But anyway, I've learned a bit more from talking with all of you and with Rona.
I feel bad for the Volare because it's just what you said. It was reduced. It was reduced. That passive voice means something else did the reducing. And if there's anything that we know about the history of sentient life, is that we enslave, we kill, and we mistreat one another. And I would be frightened to learn what has reduced that Volare to the state in which you found it.
There are some among my number that I think that's closer to the more traditional ways of my people in some ways, a bit more alien to the idea of community with other species or family in a sense. Family's a very strange concept when you're made of stardust. You're all kind of one thing. But anyway, I think being around beings not like myself, it's all sort of rubbed off on me, and it's I think I am better off for it. Anyway, that was just me thinking aloud. I don't do that too often. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna go search for this thing, the Sorium infused Durasteel, or talk to Spindra or something. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye. Sleep well.
Goodbye.
Okay. So so you depart to find this information. You're probably about a day out, Kaz, from Pelsaros, maybe less.
I'll just save it since we're going there.
Well, I was going to say it's up to you. I mean, like, you also,
Yeah, no, at this point, and I think Sleepwell's suggestion is pretty sound, that if we're only a day out at this point anyway, and if talking to Spindra would be, I do sort of want to check in on what may have happened at the station since we left as well. Mm-hmm. So Kaz will just go back to cleaning up his physical belongings.
Okay.
For now.
All right. And as you, then I will say, as we approach Pelsaros, and the ship is sort of readying its descent, as all the pre-flight stuff is happening, Rona handles this as she did on the way out. Rona's talking to people back there and back on the station. That you can see that there are a series of drones that seem to be launched from the station, that are, by space terms, very small, and they encircle the ship as you're going along. And as you're sort of processing, as Rona's sort of going through security checks and everything, is like, what is going on? It's a new enhanced security protocol, supposedly, on Abraxas's orders. And Sleepo, you can probably tell because of your knowledge of drones that these are pretty powerful and probably, powerful enough that collectively they could pose a major threat to the Hyperlance if there was ever, within reason. If the Hyperlance vanished, that would be a lot harder. But just assuming it was a one-to-one actual battle, or I guess one versus many, that the drones would probably give the Hyperlance a run for its money. In any case, they don't do anything. They're just sort of circling around it as you come in for final approach, as it were. And when they have you finally docked, and the drones have sort of taken one last pass and then flown off, you hear a familiar voice filling the cockpit, and from the intercom speaker, and it is, "Well, welcome back. If you have something to report, you should head up to the office and do it now. We have some news to discuss." Sure sounds like Abraxas.
Okay. I think we do.
I think we do. I think we probably also leave Alfred on the ship. If we do,
I think
who's
we
going
need
to
to bring-
watch him?
I don't think we need to. I think that Abraxas needs to come to us. It's not just about the chip; it's about Alfred as well. And the best place for him to do any of his work is to have it in an isolated situation, and that's on the Hyperlance. So Abraxas should come to us.
I'm up
Okay.
for that. That actually makes sense to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like it.
Let's see if Abraxas will come to us. Would be
Kaz
Okay,
will pick
so-
up the,
I was gonna say, yeah,
the
go ahead, Kaz.
communicator and say, "Hey, we, whatever you have to inform us about, we will hear. But we have something on the ship a bit hard to move, and we actually have a favor to ask of you.
That's
you
no
mind if
problem.
we-
I can send a couple of my men to pick it up.
No, it's we need your eyes and hands on it, and would you mind if we just have the meeting on the Hyperlance?"
And there's a pause, and then he says, all right, I suppose that's fine. Little unorthodox, but I'm calling the shots here. That's fine. All right.
All right.
When?
Well,
Now?
right now. You wanted us to go to your office right now, so I just pulled up. There's this old human game I heard about called Uno, and I pulled the reverse card. Right? I think.
He says, I'm going to draw 4. And he nods. I wait eagerly the copyright strike for the use of Uno in a
Sorry.
he says, all right then, give me about 5 cycles, I'll be over. And so he five
cycles?
Minutes.
yeah,
What
five
is a cycle?
5 I don't know, 5
Days?
mini cycles.
5 years?
Let's put it that way. 5 minutes is what he's basically saying.
And while we're at it, I guess, Kaz will try to get in contact with Spindra.
You do manage to get in contact with Spindra just by audio only, and there is a loud metallic banging sound when you get through, like doing, 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 as if like she's trying to hammer out something. And she says, "Yeah."
What are you working on? It sounds like a spring.
I'll tell you, these conversations are up, and then you're like, God, Frel, everything. And then, look, is this Kaz? Doing,
Of course.
doing, doing, doing. Look, I don't mean this the wrong way. I'm glad to hear from you. I'm glad you survived. But one thing, you stupid piece of... And then stops. Says, not you. That was the thing that I'm trying...
I'm
Toying,
sure.
toying, toying. And says, but I'm a little busy. What... Do you need something now?
Yes.
Doing, doing, doing.
Yes, actually. It doesn't need to be right now. We just landed and wanted to see if you were going to come to the ship to have a discussion. Nothing
You
serious.
want me on the Hyperlance?
Kaz is holding the communicator and slowly turns around and looks at Sleepwell.
Aramis says yes, she needs to be here.
And I stick a needle
Yes.
in Aramis's arm.
Are you going to say something? Aramis?
He's
Or is that-
waiting.
that's
He's
just
like,
your
what do I even
reaction?
say?
That's your
That's what you
reaction to
say.
getting stabbed with the needle.
Because it's a tranquilizer, right? So you're like,
Oh.
Yes, we do. You sound like I hope you take this with a grain of salt, but you sound like you could use a break too.
and you see here one last sort of emphatic doing, like, and yes,
You know,
I
they
could
say
at that.
sometimes the best thing to iron out difficulties with something you're working on is to try something else.
And she says, all right, Kaz, when is this happening?
Right now.
Right now?
Mm-hmm. Like, you should start walking over, please.
All right, well, and you hear this clang, which sounds ominously like a skull banging into some metal. And, yeah, all right, I'll be there. Front stupid. and
Thank
then
you very
the
much.
connection goes dead. And I think as we have Abraxas coming from one side, Spindra coming from the other, and Alfred waiting along with Sleepwell, Aramis, and Petra for all of it, it's a good time to take our break. I know this is slightly later than we planned. Our plan is to go to right just before midnight Eastern, which is about just under an hour from now. So we're going to take a 5-minute break, then we'll come back here, recommence if that's okay with the players. Chat, you are watching the amazing Esper Genesis crew of Johnny Pittman, Cat Rambo, Carlos Nedes, and Zach Clay playing this amazing game. If you like it, please support us in all the ways that you know how to do. And otherwise, hold tight. We will be back with you folks in just a moment. Hold tight. Okay, and we are back. It is awesome that in the interim, while we've been gone, you will note that we have
I guess I
had a
need
bunch
to
of
join the
people
club.
have,
God.
yeah, a bunch of people have showed up to actually come to my new office and you know, my new house, which is not. I mean, I'm there. These are all good friends, and I'm excited to have them with me. But I really didn't you know, expect it was going to work out quite this way. Hi, Shadow. So yeah, so now we have everyone in different windows. Also, they're all apparently me. So I'm just going to move things around for a minute. While I do that, if you could play that music from the you know, the 70s game shows. That's Spanish Flea, right?
Yeah, right. Per Papa and the Tijuana Brass.
I was thinking more like the Benny Hill theme.
Yeah. Oh my God! What am I even doing? What even is this?
Yo, what are you doing?
It is really
I
funny.
swear to God, like what?
I just clicked onto the stream. Any new audience member is going to be very confused.
Yeah, really.
Not because of what we've done.
Yeah, no. Right, nothing having to do with all of you.
Yeah, nothing. It's all Greg's fault.
This is the dreamscape inside the
Yes.
mind of, you know.
And the great part now is that we all have such fancy microphones. Like, we all have matching
Seriously?
microphones and also matching cabinets. Look at these wonderful cabinets behind me.
Matching
With,
beards. You know?
Yeah.
Matching greatest baseball team in the history of recorded time. All part of that.
I'm going to take them to win that World Series again.
How many they won? How many they won since then? 4. Oh, sorry, 3. Most they became the team of the millennium at that point. Okay, let's see. Well, I've got Zach as Petra, and I've got Aramis. This is absurd.
I have a very large hammer.
I'm actually going to have to not do this in Zoom. Of course, part of the problem with this is that this is just, again, a reminder of how terrible Zoom is at managing the window thing. They finally made it so you can move windows. So I'm like, why can't I literally just exchange 2 spots? Like, you just put one in the other. But nope, I move it, and then it's like, oh, you want me to rotate everything around, coach? Like, no, I really don't. Thanks. So I'm just going to move. I'm going to do it in OBS.
Coach?
Move you here. I can do it, big guy. Yeah, all right. And then,
No, you can't Zoom. No, you can't.
Exactly. That
You're still in
won't.
the
That
junior
won't do,
league.
pig. That won't do. Okay. Then we have Johnny, who's not even. Johnny, like really, like, you're not even moving. Sigh.
The ghost of
goes
Johnny
there.
Goodman.
Yeah, exactly. We hardly knew ye. All right, and
You had any paranormal experiences?
no,
from
you know,
the sea captain yet?
No, it's funny. People were asking if that was going to be the case, and I'm like, you're assuming they'd be hostile, but no. The sea captain who owned this home has, as far as I know, not put in an appearance yet. Although maybe we're not yet in the position. It's funny too because this place has been through multiple, you know, not reworks completely, but it was built in 1803, and then the owners basically tore it down to the beams in the 1840s, the new owners, and rebuilt it again. And so, you know, you wonder what era the ghost would actually be from. So the foundation was here the whole time, and the structure was here the whole time, even from then. So that was the original 1803 part. And then the 1840s, they built it up from the beams up so that it's kind of this mixture of architecture. So yeah. So no, not yet. I look forward to it. I will say that I have named this unofficially Wind Coast Studios because there's a lot of wind in this place, which I like wind anyway. But I'll tell you right now, from a writing point of view, you're up in the attic working on something and like I mean, come on now.
That must be nice.
Exactly, Triffid, the ghost in Armin Muir. And we're getting the benefit of it now because I don't have to worry about how loudly I talk or don't talk because there's a hall, there's a staircase and a door at the bottom that shuts it off. So if I were to scream, they would barely hear me, which is awesome. So
the ghost is taking notes.
You know.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. And between levels, there's like the body of the sea captain with to
Yeah.
buffer sound.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just
what
have
you
to
can't see is the head of the sea captain poking up from behind Greg going, I see, won't hear
Right.
you if you scream. And goes, ducks back down under the floor.
Just like avast, every so often. And then I've been suggesting Wuthering Rights, but Arvin keeps ignoring me. I don't think I saw that.
Rights is so good.
Wuthering
It's
Rights
good.
is great. Wuthering Rights is great. I appreciate that. I think,
That is fantastic.
but the thing is, I was looking for some, and I kept finding things that were all like. I was like, this. There was one that was like, I wanted to use, I think, a Longship Studio, and it's like some jewelry thing in Seattle. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, okay, so finally I found Wind Coast, and Wind Coast does not come up with any Google hits. I'm like, good, I can unofficially call this, and I won't get trademark violations. Wuthering Rights is probably fine because of public domain, right? The wuthering part. Anyway, but welcome everybody. Let's switch up the music here. And we will talk about what happened. Guess who's coming to dinner when Abraxas and Spindra showed up on the bridge at the same time. Let's go with some.
Oh, yeah, they have a feud, don't they? Right?
Yeah.
Was it them? No, it was Abraxas and Orisa Angel. Never
Right.
mind.
Let's see. Let's go with. There we go. One of the classics, weirder things. Okay. So, Spindra and Abraxas, both coming for different reasons to the Hyperlands, though as it happens, they arrive almost at the same time. And it's actually when you first get the basically of someone at the outside. Yeah, exactly. Waterdeep, Wind Coast, and Neverwinter. Yeah, exactly, Rockgod. I kind of felt that way, but seriously, it is very windy here because we're only a block away from the ocean. I'm sure that's part of it, but it's awesome. I love it. Anyway, so they both arrive at the same time, and so when the door is opened to the Hyperlands, both of them are standing there looking rather nonplussed, I think it might be fair to say. Abraxas walks in, Spindra following, and when Abraxas sees all of you, sort of waiting. Are you all waiting on the bridge, by the way? Are you waiting to sort of welcome him, or you're like, where are you waiting?
The my four androids are there to escort them, to the bridge.
Okay.
Well, Sleepo, where do you do all of your work?
I have like a little workshop area, right? So like usually I think we don't have the map of the
I can
ship
call it up.
right
Give me
now.
1 second.
But like there's an workshop area that's next to the engine, if I remember correctly.
There we go.
Yeah, so I guess if I can just sort of like right in like this area, this is where I've been doing a lot of the work and stuff.
Okay. So do you want to meet them there?
Actually, yeah, that would make a lot of sense. Well, no, we have to do it at the bridge because we need the helmet.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Because the helmet. Okay. All right. Well, then feel free, everybody, to move your tokens this away.
Do we need the helmet? I think, isn't this more about the chip?
It's about the chip, but the chip and the helmet and the hyperlands and everything are kind of imbricated, right?
All right. Are we bringing Alfred to the bridge as well?
Definitely.
Okay.
All right.
Everyone to the bridge.
Both Alfreds or just?
No.
Okay.
Just the Alfred that's awake right now.
Okay. Okay. So so they arrive on the bridge. Spindra, as they first enter, Abraxas kind of walks in, kind of looking kind of sort of grumpy isn't quite the right word, but sort of like, what the hell is all this? Whereas Spindra, although she originally has this kind of frustrated expression, the minute that she's on the bridge and the minute that she catches sight that you're there, Sleepwell kind of averts her eyes and is sort of looks quite actively uncomfortable.
And remember, she was escorted here by four of my
Right. Oh yeah.
too. So she, I'm hoping she was uncomfortable the whole time.
Oh yeah, it
If
seems
not,
like it.
I'll just make sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Carlos wants to make sure that she was uncomfortable the whole time.
Hi, did my
Sleep
drones
well.
treat you
Sleep well,
well?
yes.
I'm really sorry. They've got to learn not to do that. Okay.
Sleep well though. Carlos is the player.
You're very correct. I'm sorry.
Okay. So when they arrive on the bridge in the way that I've described, there's a moment's pause, and then Abraxas says, "Well, quite a happy little party. kind of looks around, taking stock of everyone. And then he stops as he catches sight of the new Alfred.
Yeah.
And says, What is... What?
Yeah. Right. That's why you're here. We have not only found the Alfred that you see before you here, but we have his creator in cold storage aboard the ship as well. And we have this. And I take out the chip. The last request of said creator was that we put this chip in this Alfred. But before we did anything quite so precipitous, we wanted to basically have a look in what's on the chip just to make sure it was safe. No go. We need somebody who can really hack a chip, and that is you.
And Abraxas sort of nods slowly, although his mouth is still slightly open and he's still staring at the Alfred. And he says, "How many of these things exactly are there running around the universe?" And Alfred...
At least 3.
Yeah, Alfred says, "I only knew of myself until not long ago." And he sort of... And the minute he hears the voice, Abraxas is like... and looks over and says... "You didn't program him already?"
We haven't programmed any Alfreds.
He was programmed by the creator.
The creator? What?
Dr.
Prasan, my creator, Alfred says. And he,
yeah.
Mikar Prasan. That?
Mm-hmm.
That's you have him? Mm-hmm. You have him he's dead?
He's dead.
Mm-hmm.
We found him, basically being slowly consumed by a creeper, which lived up to its name, by the way. And with him was this Alfred. So we brought him back and hope to treat him with all due respect and reverence. But in the meantime, we have, I hold up the chip again, and this to decipher.
So he reaches out for the chip.
Was holding that in his dead, cold hand. The last thing he was holding.
And you hear Spindra, "Well, that's interesting." And Abraxas sort of takes a quick glance at her and then reaches, holds his hand out for the chip.
Hand it to him.
And he sort of turns it around and he says, "This is this is an old model. I haven't seen one of these for 20 years maybe." And he kind of looks at it and he turns to Alfred and he says, "He wanted to install this in you. Why didn't he do it himself?" And Alfred shrugs and says, "He said I wouldn't be ready until the time came when others came. These, I assume," kind of like points to everybody. And Abraxas nods slowly. And he says, "All right." And he takes a look and he pulls out something from his pocket, which looks almost like a jeweler's, I don't know what you call those. Loop? Yes. Like this, right, exactly, the magnifier, right? And looks in, except that as it comes close to the outside of it, you see this little doop, and there's a little blue light, and you see a vague holographic projection sort of playing across the surface as he moves his eye. And it looks almost like a reflection, actually, of his eye on the unit that is moving sort of left and right as he's scanning. And he says, "All right. It's not mechanically tripped. It's not," and he looks again, "solid state. Mm-hmm." And he says, "Well, it won't blow up if we plug it into one of the computers here. That's a good start." And he says, "I don't know whether I should, well," and he looks again and then says, "All right, I'll need access to one of your computers here, unless you want me to do this back in my office."
I think we should do it here.
And he nods. And Spindra, as he goes over to sort of sit down by one of the terminals, Spindra says, And as for me, Kaz, why am I here?
Yes, Kaz.
Spindra is here because I want her here, at least. But I thought another set of eyes and ears and experience relating to this might be useful. So I thought hearing about this, and if you had anything to comment on it, there is something else that we were wanting to discuss with you that has nothing to do with that, by the way, though. But maybe let's hold it until he's done.
And she nods and she says, Well, if you want my advice, I wouldn't mess with anything that ended up on a crazy frozen world wherever you ended up going. Whatever this person had, like Abraxas said, he could have installed it himself. And this just to me is an invitation for trouble. And Abraxas, in the meantime, has now activated the terminal and is using the loop again, except that now he's using it not looking through it, but is kind of scanning over it. And as he does so, looking at the terminal, you can see a bunch of like code flying up the screen as he's sort of scanning over it. And it looks almost very much like kind of almost like a sort of binary radar, in that as it's scanning, the ones and zeros continue to appear as if code is flying down. And so he's kind of running over it slowly. And then there's a big whoo, like spike of code suddenly. And he's like, well, what exactly did I stumble on there? And he goes back over it again. Whoo, and he says, there's a hornet's nest below here. Someone doesn't want us to see what this is. And Spindra nods and says, I told you, wouldn't be installing this if I were you. And Alfred says, well, but he said that I should have it installed and that I would understand everything at that time, and the time seems to be now. I can't imagine what other time it would be. And Abraxas kind of looks over at all of you and he says, do you see the firewall on this thing?
We saw it.
Yeah, it's not usual that you can see a firewall, so...
Nope. He said, but there's two ways to look at that, Kaz. Things that they don't want you to get through, and things they want you to know you shouldn't try to get through. And he goes back over the code with scanning it, and he says, you see this? And again, you see the big spike. And he says, this right here is not necessary. It's a trigger that's placed in digitally, on purpose. There's something real behind it for sure. But he didn't have to let me know it was there. He could have just had it be normal, background. He wanted us to know that something is secure. Very secure.
You don't think you can view the information without tripping it?
And he sighs and says, I think... Well, I'll put it this way. Maybe. But I don't think he wants you to know. And that means you have to make a decision. There's got to be a good reason if he's telling you not to look at it, that he's telling you not to do so. And the question is the good reason good for him or good for you? That
Both.
depends on whether you trust him.
Yeah.
I trust him, says Alfred.
Yeah. Alfred, sorry, there's some I've been clearing out my suit. There's still some clogs, I think. So, can you spell out to us one more time, if you could, what exactly this portion of your last programming was about finding people like us, quote unquote?
He said there would be a time when someone would be able to track down this information back to me, and that the people who found it would be the same ones that would need to program me with this code. He said that if I knew beforehand, it wouldn't work, and that if we spread the word out elsewhere, that people would... And he
You'd
shrugged.
attract the wrong people.
Right. He said the same ones who could get me off of this planet would be the ones that we could trust to know what to do with this information when the time came. And I have to say, Dr. Prasan wasn't always the easiest person. I never knew that him to be wrong.
Yeah.
Except with the creature, I guess. He was wrong
Sure.
there.
Well, my vote is that we take the leap of faith and just put it in. That's been my vote the whole time. I know it might be risky, but based on everything we know about this guy, we learned that he created the Long Winter in a degree. He created the ship. He created all the Alfreds. And it was only after he was ejected from his company or something along those lines that Zephyr Corps and the Shadow Technocracy and all that was created. And he surely wants to stop them. They are, I think, his enemies as they are ours. So if that's anything to base it off of, I doubt that putting this chip in is going to suddenly take control of the Hyperlance and send it off somewhere. And if it does, I bet it's going to take it to go take care of Zephyr Corps. That's one off of us. I don't know. I say we just put it in.
And Abraxas says, whatever this is, the minute that this gets used, it's a big amount of code. Something powerful lurking underneath the surface. But what it is, impossible to say.
Among the many things. So, Sleepwell is just kind of like strolling with his hands behind his back, kind of like strolling in between. Among the many reasons why that is a terrible idea, Cosmoritis. Two salient points I want to bring up here. One, it wasn't so long ago.
Stands up a little straighter.
It wasn't. It wasn't so long ago that we were worried that our other Alfred would explode in such a way that a good portion of the Silrain arc would be atomized. There's no evidence that Prasad has that in mind for this Alfred, but there's actually not a lot of evidence to the contrary. He did create the Long Winter, this thing that he did lose control over, and he didn't create fail-safes to protect him from that. So I don't know that I have the same faith that you do in Prasan's omniscience and his powers of divination for the future. And I have no idea who he intended to find this. The other thing that's actually my larger worry is that we plug this in and Alfred dies. And I turn to Alfred and I say, he created many Alfreds, and I have no sense of what he thought of artificial life. But I see you, Alfred, and I don't want you to become another victim of Prasad's schemes if he decides that you should be overwritten in some way. There's a lot of code on that chip. I think if anyone is in danger from it, well, maybe everyone is, but you'd be the first.
He says, Dr. Prasan's plans, his systems, his methods, all of those things went into the making of the Alfreds. But he said there was only one that he ever fully programmed from start to finish, without anyone else tweaking the programming, adding things, taking things away. And it was me. I was the one that didn't touch anything else he'd ever done, he said. That's what made me special. It's what made me... What was the term he used? Myself.
When
You said-
Sleepwell brought up the second point of whatever is on this chip possibly overriding a part of what Alfred is, causes the color of his energy being in his suit darkened a little bit. And he turned over to Alfred and he said, and says with a certain sternness, "That is a very strong point. You need to consider if you have something invading what you are. Are you sure you trust what it is going to be?" Speaking from experience.
And so Alfred kind of regards you seriously, and then he looks around at everybody from one to the next in turn, and he says, "Petra, do you remember what I told you when we were in cyberspace back then, when you came to find me?"
I remember our conversation. Which part of it?
Well, you asked me why I put the helmet on, even though you had said not to push any buttons and all that. And I said that there's a little bit of impulsiveness, Dr. Prasan called it, but that I was exploring home. I don't know how I knew it was all right to put that helmet on. It's possible he could have concealed programming in me that when I put the helmet on would have taken over the Hyperlance. But I knew it was all right to put it on, and I was home again. I can't tell you exactly how I know, except to say that Prasan never really lied to me. He would sometimes say only half things, or be vague, or wave off a question. But whenever he told me something, he was telling the truth. And I know that he was so sad for what he had done earlier in his life. The way his plans and problems and his procedures had been taken and used against him, used against the people of the universe. He said it wasn't what he had signed up for. That's why he took me here, all the way out to Bakiu, where no one would come, he said. I don't know exactly what he has planned, but none of you knew him like I did. When he was dying, and there was no way to stop it, when he held the chip up, he said that the only true answer to anything was a search for the truth of who one was. He said that it was the key to opening who I was, and that I didn't need to be lonely and afraid anymore. I believe him. And Spindra kind of gives a half snort, but Abraxas looks solemn and looks at all of you and says, Prasan was a universe-class genius, but I never heard him to be the type to throw away lives on technical gambles. I don't understand why he ever worked with Zephyrcore in the first place, except they had the most resources. But... and he shakes his head. It's dangerous, but everything you've been doing is dangerous for years now. You ought to be used to it.
I have a thought. If Alfred is willing to take the risk of plugging the chip in, and I think we can honor its autonomy, we don't want to limit its potential. If this is what its creator says will unleash its full potential, and it wants to do it. I think we can do that, but we still have to think about the safety of everyone else. Because you have, on a few occasions, created a pocket
You don't even need to
universe.
finish that sentence. And I point up,
Oh,
and there's
man.
a little.
The talent that could.
And so
Oh
I say,
yeah. By
like,
the way, have we rested?
Yes,
Yeah,
on the
we've
on the
done
trip
that.
on the way
Okay.
back. Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I cast Dimensional Pocket, and then Sleepo continues.
And so I say, everybody in.
And
Well, maybe we should. What are we saying? We're really afraid is going to happen. Like worst case scenario, Prasan was like, "Let me put a bomb on this chip." No. Then
Well-
in that case, shouldn't we like fly out into space or something?
But in
Wanna
the
blow up-
pocket universe, it would be contained, right? It would
Yeah,
just
but
explode in the
anyone
pocket
not in the
universe.
pocket universe, like the entirety of the space station, if we're that worried, I'm not.
and
I mean-
Alfred says, "Wait, do you mean you want me to go up there?"
Oh,
That's right. Yeah,
I
I
misunderstood.
want Alfred to go up there with any volunteers who want to go in there with him and watch him put the chip in. And I say, I'll go if you go, Alfred.
And Alfred nods and he says, "That's all right with me. It's the chip and my identity. Wherever I am in the universe, wherever you go, there you are."
So I clap. Right. Well, who else wants to hop on in there?
I've been asserting in the affirmative for this, so I will stand by my bet and go in.
Okay.
I would follow.
All right, Petra, Aramis.
We have to have a designated survivor, Aramis. I'm sorry. You need to stay outside.
Not worried at all. And Aramis just walks over to the command chair and just has a seat.
Okay, and Spindra kind of looks around and says, "And, am I allowed up in this treehouse?"
Yeah, if the
Why?
thing explodes, I really want you to explode with us. So come on up.
And
Sleepwell, I thought you were a doctor.
I like the idea that Sipo's saying this too, with just his head ducking out of the thing, like just so you know, like right
Yeah,
below,
exactly.
So Spindra comes up, and now you have many of you in the pocket, except for Aramis. And I believe the dimensional pocket allows you to keep the bottom of it open so that it can still be
Yeah,
seen into,
here.
right?
Yeah,
Like you
people
can.
can see into
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Sure, I'll look up. So, I create an invisible entrance. Would I be able to make it visible if I wanted it to be visible? Because here, I'll read the
No,
whole
but you
thing
could
as it-
dangle. You could. Well, okay, yeah. I mean, you could dangle something out of it to
Yeah.
to reveal where it is. That wouldn't be hard.
Okay, yeah. It
Like
says
Spindra.
it's an extra it's an extra dimensional space that can be reached by standing directly below the entrance. So it's always above us. And you step under it,
Mhm.
and it pulls you up like a Star Trek transporter type thing. One creature at a time. Exiting takes an action. It can hold up to 8 medium or smaller creatures. It says they cannot be seen on the outside by mundane senses. But I don't know. We do on the inside though get a window that lets us see out. It says attacks and powers can't cross through the entrance or out of the extra dimensional space, but those inside can see out of it as if through a 3-foot by 5-foot window.
Okay, so right, so you could leave
And the
something
spaces-
hanging out, but Aramis wouldn't be able to see into what's happening. Then it sounds like you'd be able to see out.
Yeah, and I don't know the scientific ramifications of leaving the door open, even if that's something I can even do. It implies that I can't.
Yeah,
But-
I don't think we want to anyway. If there's an explosion, we do want to contain it.
Yeah, but yeah, and it says it's large enough to hold 8 medium or smaller creatures, so it's probably the size of a small room. But anyway, yeah. Does Abraxas go in as well?
Abraxas sort of stands there tapping his foot for a while, and then
Look, if you're afraid it's gonna blow. There's nothing obligating you to go in.
And he kind of says, I get dumber every day. And he climbs up into the dimensional pocket and is inside very comfortably, as we know the dimensional pocket can accommodate. And so he still has the chip, and so he holds it up as everyone's in there, and he says, "Last chance." Alfred kind of looks around at all of you wide-eyed.
Yeah, it's like, we're here for a reason. Let's do it.
And he hands it over
I'm
slowly
right.
and reluctantly to Alfred. And Alfred says, I don't have here on the back. And he turns around, and the back of his neck, this little slot opens up. And he holds the chip up and says, one of you has to slot that in. It was a final failsafe that Dr. Preston put in.
I take the chip. I'd say, okay, buddy, here we go. Ready?
Yes.
I sort of look at everybody and say, like, here we go. And I plug it in.
So when you plug it in, there is a slight, just little, like slight
Does it sound like a VHS going into a...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then the tracking adjusts. No.
Zach, are you even old enough to know what that sounds like?
Exactly.
Barely.
So no, there's a slight hum, a click and a slight hum. And for a moment, his head is just sort of lowered. And then he kind of looks up, and his head, as he lifts it, does not look like the somewhat tentative, kind of innocent-sounding Alfred. And he turns around, same face and everything else, and looks at you. And there's a long pause, and then he says, "Thank you. I knew it would be hard, but that somehow this would happen, and that we would find the people we needed. Hello, everyone. You found me just in time, I think. I'm Dr. Mikar Prasan, and we have very little time left. And that is going to be the end of our session here. That is going to bring our session to a close.
Should have backed him up.
Well, that doesn't necessarily mean anything's been overwritten. It just means that is the programming. We'll see what happens with that one way or the other. Last time you were all convinced that it was gonna, he was gonna destroy the ship, but see, it was fine. You all went up and talked to him, and it was no problem, and everything worked out.
I knew it. I was like, you sure you want to do this, buddy?
Yeah. That is interesting. But to Carlos's and or Sleepwell's point of like, even though Alfred really may feel like he wants this chip to complete him, maybe he's just programmed to feel like he wants the chip to complete him. That's a whole other, discussion, but whatever.
Yep. It'll be interesting to see, and there will be more, presumably more revelations to come with this. On one level, if it's true, it means that you have before you the digitally resurrected Dr. Mikar Prasan, which is kind of an interesting new take on the model. Yes, Triffid, maybe it's more of a partnership than an overwrite. Could very well be. Or a temporary adjustment. We will see.
Maybe we've now brought him to his final form.
Exactly. Exactly. Now I am Sephiroth. That's possible. He starts whistling.
Yeah.
Like.
Good luck, Aramis. Dealing the dimensional pocket door opens, just blood.
Yeah.
It's just like, I have
all Aramis hears is da 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 da. Like, that's bad. That's really bad. I will start, as always, with the person all the way on the right side. And we could have gone a few extra minutes, but I was like, no, that's actually a good pause point, because it's going to set us up nicely for what is going to be a very active session next time. There's a lot of stuff is going to go down. I cannot wait to see the choices that the party makes about where they want to go with what happens. So it's going to be cool. I'll start with you, Zach. Good stuff today. I was really interested to to see each one of you in a way interacting with Alfred and drawing from your own experience. I mean, as Carlos just mentioned, Sleepwell has that point where he's like, are you sure you want to do this? Because, everyone had their own approach. Petra obviously did this earlier on in the session, talking a little bit about her own personal connection to the Hyperlance. And Aramis, too, was able to talk a little bit about, knowing what it's like to go through sort of difficulties and choices, and some of the sort of speaking to Alfred early on, where it was kind of like sticking up for him basically, and saying like, look, he didn't break the law, he didn't break the rules, like he was exploring his home. So everyone was interacting in their own way. And for you, Zach, Kaz, I think, was really interacting with him as, I know what it's like to have a kind of unwanted presence, a presence that is, even if theoretically benign, is still troubling, and is that something that you're willing to kind of take on board? And I thought that was an interesting and direct corollary, connection that you're able to draw with Alfred, who I got the impression, by the way, that everyone really likes this Alfred, and that's part of the reaction, is sort of like, we don't want that Alfred to go away necessarily. We'll see what happens. But that's part of it, that you appreciated aspects of his personality. Anyway, what did you think about the session tonight, Zach? Where will the lovely folks find you next?
Yeah, that aspect of similarity with Kaz's situation, with Winter being installed in him and Alfred possibly having this chip installed in him, which he now does. Kaz didn't really consider that until Sleepwell brought that up as a point, and that was almost kind of like,
I saw that thing about the stern expression,
that's been sort of a through line ever since Kaz has been carrying this other entity within him that he never necessarily agreed or wants this being to be sharing a space in his suit. So although he and Sleepwell were sort of the messengers of the different ideologies behind the decision of what to do.
Yeah, you were arguing for a leap of faith, I think was your term.
Yeah,
on multiple occasions.
And, but that was the point where that really hit Kaz in a way of relation, in a way that I'm not even sure that Zach would have thought of that. But as soon as I was like, that's one of the most important parts about Kaz as a character right now, is how he's being affected by things, the long winter being in him. So
yep.
Yeah. So yeah, that was really, and just really great role play between all of us. And we can, I'll just say, we can make an entire session about whether or not to put a chip in a robot and make it interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
We literally, we could have just slotted the chip in right at the beginning, but no, it was the journey and how we got there, and I think we learned a lot more about our characters and motivations and things like that along the way. So very good. Can't wait to see what happens, and can't wait to. I love the balance of roleplay and combat that we have, where we have entire sessions of either or neither, one or the other, I should say. So yeah, I'm looking forward to whatever comes next, and getting some Sorium infused Durasteel so Petra can have a cool shield.
Yep.
A very large hammer and a very large shield.
Yeah, for a minute when you said that, I was like, oh wait, was that? And then I was like, no, you said you were waiting for Abraxas before you brought up the Sorium Durasteel. So yes.
We'll get to that. We're gonna go on some long trip, and that'll be later. But anyway, yeah, I'm Zach Clay. You'll find me here on this channel frequently for our vocalists or Esper Genesis. Also on my own channel on Twitch and YouTube, where I do RPG stuff. I also make remixes using music because I'm a musician. I'm also in The Road, which is Greg's
newest
band.
Member of my program. Yeah, that's right. I don't think these people know this, that newest member of my band, The Road, which is a progressive rock band, and we are about 6 or 7 songs into a new album.
Wow.
So
yeah,
very happy to have Zach with us. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's all for me at this moment. I also run D&D for students, and that's part of what I'm doing this weekend. So wish me luck.
Yeah,
So
Zach does a really good job with that. Thank you, Zach. As always, a pleasure. Also, a pleasure as always to have Carlos with us. And yeah, I was very much enjoying the. I really have been enjoying watching Sleepwell's. I mean, like the sort of cliche thing would be like, well, Sleepwell's really maturing and growing up. I think it's not quite like that. It's that Sleepwell's reactions, as in the broad strokes of the young, tend to have these moments. And I was laughing about this idea of you walking around being like, first we must consider the possible test cases. And I was just like,
was pretty good. It was hands behind the back.
Yeah, the hands behind the back was the good
points.
part. Like 2 salient points that must be
Yes,
considered.
I liked when you said Sleepwell full professor. Yeah, Ludicum full professor Sleepwell.
Yep, I can't imagine where they got that idea. But it was really it's been really enjoyable to see that, and also to think about. All of you were able to do these callbacks, like remember when this happened, and think about this, and do we have a chance to do this? And so Sleepwell's particular relationship to those decisions that have been made in the past have been interesting, up to and including the whole you're still pissed off and don't like Spindra, and yet you were kind of like, listen, whatever. Like you think, Spindra needs to come and be a part of this process in some way, because that has overridden your Spindra should be, thrown out the airlock, right? There's still the sense that there's some practical use. You just don't want to be anything that acknowledges anything valuable about her, except you're like, but obviously she should come, but I'm not going to ask her to come. You're going to tell her you're going to invite her, but I want you to invite her, but I'm not doing it, that type of thing. So that was really interesting to me to see that kind of journey. And we got more of that tonight. How did you feel, Carlos, about tonight, and where will the lovely folks see you next?
So, in the last session, I feel like I really learned something about Sleepwell from Aramis, from Johnny's roleplay of Aramis specifically, that Sleepwell fights but listens at the same time. Like, he will just be in contest at the moment and want to win, very much like younger sorts of people who are precocious want to win arguments, but he's also listening. And so, this time when Aramis said, give, the agent his choice, he listened to that, and that's what I used to sort of like role play the later conversation with Kaz. Yeah. Even though it's also consistent with things that Wari, his mentor who was consumed Wari Sleepwell, it's consistent with that, but I was thinking about sort of like he fights but he listens, and so like what might be a kind of like mercurialness in his character is really just sort of like he really is like smart and thoughtful. He's just not willing to back down in front of people, and that just comes from the fact that he's been running from his family and trying to decide his own course, and he just has to feel like he's right. Right, exactly. So, and it, like I said, it's like maybe with more maturity comes a different kind of wisdom, but he likes, taking possession of a room and sort of like doing the elementary, my dear Watson kind of routine.
It very much had the Sherlock Holmes, like, let's go through the facts one by one.
While we're thinking about the growth of and change of Sleepwell over time, that just reminded me, from the sense of he's had to be right because he's had to fight for himself. Right. And to fight to be where he is. So it just reminded me, my mind flashed the very first moment when we met Sleepwell hiding in this ship inside our engineering room. Fast forward to now, a part of the group, and with his hands behind the back saying, well, first we need to consider. I think that's, everything you said is great.
And just very quickly before you finish up, Carlos, I wanted to say, I think Carlos will probably agree with me on this, but we'll see. I always have admired the resilience of the general age group that we teach. As frustrating as young people can sometimes be, because you can see,
yes, we can.
Like, you just need a certain perspective. Yes, exactly. You people, Zach, you need a certain perspective that obviously the young can't have because they haven't lived their lives yet. But there's such incredible inspiration to be drawn from the resilience and the fight. that I always have a smile on my face when I see stuff like that happening, and it is not to be misinterpreted as condescension. It is interpreted as deep and abiding care for the sort of experience of resilience that I see in young people like this. And so that idea of learning and fighting, even the fight, I find enormously heartening, even if I find it frustrating. So I want to speak for you, Carlos, but it reminded me of that, the way that you play him in that sense.
But yeah, I mean, I would agree with that, and just keep adding, just the flat out intelligence and sophistication that I'm encountering, not only with sort of like people who are, Zach's age, but I was just in a 4th grade class where I was talking to students who were so precocious and so good at asking questions about literature and like wanting to be a writer, that really it's just like when I talk to kids groups these days, the only difference between the questions I get from adults and the questions I get from kids is that kids will also ask me about my favorite Pokemon. But they're asking all the other same questions. Like, they'll be like, well, when you create a persona, how much of that is you? And it's just like, well, that's a very hard, difficult question to answer. I'm going to answer as best I can. And then it's like, do you like Lickitung? And I'm like,
it's a wider range of options, right?
Exactly. It's just bigger.
You God, yeah, that's 100% true.
Yeah, it really is. And I teach college age, and the kids are all right. All this bullshit about the generations fighting each other and stuff like that.
100%
it really
agree.
is just utter nonsense. And whatever political forces are out to divide people or whatever, the generation stuff is just nonsense. The kids are absolutely all right.
100% agree.
So. Yep. You'll see me around. I'm on the webs right now. I'm in a deep production period right now where trying to get the next iteration of the game my wife and I are designing together. I am working on 2 other games, so it's actually like a big game time for me in terms of like where I'm spending a lot of my creative effort. And there will be more writing and more other good things to announce as soon as I am able to announce them. So yeah, I think probably the next time I'm live anywhere, like I just did a recording for things that will happen in the future, but yeah, probably right here next time we play.
Awesome. I look forward to that, and thank you, Carlos. Always a great pleasure to have you as a part of the group, and also a great pleasure always to have Kat as a part of the group. Kat, I really appreciated Petra's call on the early portion of this. I think it made absolute sense. It was sort of a measure of a certain kind of agency that Petra took. It felt to me where Petra was just like, they can go running, like go Benny Hill it up to the bridge if they want, but like, I am going to get if I'm going to have this weird relationship with weird connection to an AI, I'm going to freaking use it now, and so. And I frankly, as you probably can tell, love doing cyberspace cutscenes anyway, because I dig the experience of it. But I really thought that was an awesome move on your part, and I thought it showed something about Petra, a side of Petra, about the sort of confidence that she brings to the battlefield, as it were, something that is able to be transferred to other places, that I think has some real value. And that, to me, has been some of the arc. Not that Petra was some just big dumb warrior, but my point is that there's a sense of that same confidence entering these other spaces, at least for me watching it from a distance, for Petra's character. I don't know if that's how you felt or what you felt about today, but I really enjoyed seeing some of that come through. How did you feel about today, and where will the lovely folks find you next?
Well, it's always fun to play. And as Zach was saying, I love the balance of kind of storytelling and combat. And we do pay enough attention to the rules to be like, oh, new powers and that sort of thing. But the story is always the most fun part. And yeah, Petra, maybe she was being lazy. Was just like, no, I'm not going to run it.
I could just go there directly.
But it did seem like the sort of thing that she would do.
Yeah.
I will be at NorwestCon. If anybody is going to be, values a B, I will be in the Zoom calls at NorwestCon. I will be at Flights of Foundry. And then I always have classes coming up. lots of cool stuff. If you go to academy.catrambo.com, there's a bunch of new classes coming up. I'm excited because this weekend I get to facilitate a class with Shannon McGuire, and it is always so much fun to listen to Shannon teach, and also her cats are guaranteed to come through at some point. That's fun too.
The cool part is the cats also provide their own wisdom.
they're like agreed. Is it like, looking like Sleepwell, the paws behind the back, you know, like.
That's real.
Yeah, I also wanted to note that Kat and I are going to be on a panel at Flights of Foundry together, actually, about putting games in fiction. And I don't know why, I don't know where they got the idea that we would be interested in that. But we're going to be doing that. And I did want to give a shout out, just before I forget it, to ICFA, the International Conference for Fantastic and the Arts. I did a panel today on teaching speculative fiction writing with Marianne Mohanraj, with Russell Davis, with Mary Rowe Faustino, and Nancy Kress, and it was awesome. And then all these people are just sitting in chat that could do this. Andy Duncan and Rick Wilbur, and I'm like, why don't you do this already? Like, why do you? But they're like, this is great. It was really, really fascinating to listen to everybody. So I was excited to do that, and I've always liked the ICFA. And it's sad because ICFA is the first time I ever met Carlos in person. So I was actually thinking about that. I'm like, another milestone of a thing that I have to do virtually and can't do in person. But anyway, soon we'll be back together. But sorry, I didn't want to disrupt, but it just reminded me when Kat talked about that. Yeah, go ahead, Kat.
I just wanted to add one more thing for people that are interested in the space opera that I have coming out in September with Tor McMillan. Tor tweeted the cover, and it's
I haven't seen it.
Cool. So if you go look at Twitter and that title, it's the book You Sexy Thing, and I'm just so stoked, and the cover is just awesome. So go look at it and appreciate it. All right.
I am going to look at it right now. And also, I'm reading it about. Well, I see your comment about it, but I want to find. Okay, I'll find it. Anyway, but I'm going to go looking for it because I'm interested. Thank you, Kat. Always a great pleasure. And also a great pleasure, of course, to have Johnny with us. And Johnny, again, like, I really appreciated Aramis, in this case, really kind of taking Alfred's side. And what's funny about this, again, to me, is this is exactly what like, you would have been like, I don't know if I can trust Alfred, and Sleepwell would have been like, listen, here's what Alfred's actually doing. Here you really are like, look, Alfred was doing what he should do, the right thing, and Sleepwell's like, I mean, you know, really, really funny. It's not a direct exchange, but it really is if you have both drawn experience and knowledge from the other in sort of developing as the characters have gone on. So I loved watching that. How did you feel about today, Johnny, and where will the folks see you next?
I'm really offended by that, actually, because I really don't find that Sleepwell can teach Aramis anything at all.
All, not a thing.
All. No, that's the give and play in, you know, over years of playing with people and characters and stuff, and that's the great thing about doing these shows, is that we get to see and do those kinds of things for over long periods of time. So it had to happen eventually, so it makes sense. I had a whole thing. I'm still kind of thinking about the whole Brian situation. I keep looking at Twitter as I see more and more people find stuff, and they keep retweeting and they keep saying things. So I'm feeling a bit distracted about all of that. But the fine folks can find me on the internet as Video Store Cowboy everywhere. I will be back on my channel on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific with more fun stuff. And I'm currently in the throes of the post Kickstarter sort of, now I've got to do all the fulfillment and everything else around this stuff. So this is where the real work begins. So I'm just loving and enjoying that experience as well. So yeah, and that's about it.
Good stuff, Johnny. Thank you. And two things. One, I just found the cover, and yeah, Kat, that is an awesome cover. Also, straight up, the blurb, Farscape meets Great British Bake Off in this fantastic space opera should auto sell at least 10,000 copies by itself. Like, really? I don't even. So that's amazing. Secondly, I did want to say I wanted to thank the players again for really honoring what is, I think, the best SF game on the market, tabletop role-playing game on the market, with their play. I think this is really a wonderful, deep experience of watching them play, both broadly and subtly. And I think that, if anything, is as good a tribute to Brian's legacy as someone who loved that game also, as anything I can think of. So I appreciate that, Johnny. I feel somewhat similar, as we talked about, but I think every time we play, I think it's honoring him too. So I wanted to thank the players for do that, and I wanted to. I'm so excited for the next session. It's going to be great. So, chat, can we get some love for and thank the amazing team of Johnny Pittman, Kat Rambo, Carlos Hernandez, and Zach Clay, and players. Can't wait for our next session. I'll see you folks soon.
Greg, thank you so much for excellent GMing.
Always my pleasure. Thank you so
Ditto.
much. Bye for now, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Bye, chat.
All right, and that is going to do it for today. Another really, really awesome session. And yeah, I mean, the thing that's great about it is just watching. There's a lot of cool stuff to come. I mean, and a lot of it, I have no idea how it's all going to. I mean, much of it, I don't know how it's going to play out, because it's going to be entirely based on what the crew decides to do. And I don't know what that's going to be. It could be that they're going to go in a completely different direction than I might expect, and that's cool. So it means keeping me on my toes, but it also means getting the chance to really just be excited at the possibilities, right? It's like we talked about this moving into this house, and my daughter and I were out. Little Arv and I were out earlier before this session getting dinner, and we went to this one place, and we were right next to this store that was an open storefront. I think it was actually a medical place that had like moved down the street, and so the place where they were is still where they used to be is now open. And so I mean, my daughter was like, little Arv was like, yeah, she's like, and I think it's cool because I can kind of imagine what might go in there. Like, what would happen if I owned a store, and what would I put in that space? And that sense of potential is one of the most exciting things I think about game mastering or dungeon mastering with a group of players that know what they're doing, because it's literally just the potential of what might be. And there's a lot of potential energy, I think, within this campaign that I really like to go along with this campaign. So I couldn't be happier with it. It was awesome and great and cool, and I can't wait for more to come our way very, very soon. But that is going to do it for this evening. We are going to be back, remember, Saturday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, with more of Palace of the Red Pasha. The D&D with Infinity and Beyond has found themselves in quite a pickle, and we're going to see how they get themselves out of it as they try to figure out a way to bring an end to the Cult of the Dragon in Calimport. And so intrigue is on the way, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of that as time goes on. So you'll see that tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern with the Infinity and Beyond crew. And then remember, Sunday, we have got the Speculate Twitch joint event of Blades in the Dark with these strange friends, Mike Underwood, Valerie Valdez, Yoi Gawin Lin, and Iori Kasano, with Brandon O'Brien as your GM. That's happening Sunday at, I believe, 7 p.m. Eastern. And then on Monday night at 9 p.m., we have Emberwind. And Tuesday, we have Adventures of Middle-earth. And then that is followed by D&D with GOG Storm King's Thunder over on GOG with Pen and Pixels. And then Wednesday, if all goes well, we will have the rescheduled Community D&D, Dragon of Icespire Peak, with Rock God, with Hoodie, with Triffany Mats, and with Echo Alpha X5, with Shadowed Mage as your DM, if all goes well. So we've got a lot of good days in a row, and it is exciting, and I hope everyone is going to be here for it as time goes on. If you like what you saw and heard tonight, don't forget to follow the channel. Check out the YouTube with !ArvTube, the Discord with !ArvCord, the Twitter with !ArvTweets, and the website arvineleron.com. Also, if you haven't already done so, since I was talking about schedule, I do want to mention this because the final vote for this is going to be closing on Tuesday. This is the straw poll that has our next game between Rain City and Heaven's Vault. Rain City is a game that Mrs. Dunsel recommended, which is kind of a noirish adventure with animals, sort of, is kind of the way I would describe it. And Heaven's Vault is about an archaeologist trying to translate languages on alien planets. This is by Inkle, and you all know what a big fan I've been of Inkle with the sorcery stuff. So one of those games we're going to try. So now's the chance to get your vote in if you like, and we're going to see how it all plays out. But that is going to be next Tuesday will be the final vote, and I'll be playing on the Tuesday after. On the financial side, Exclamation Point Arv Shop is the merchandise area where you can get Infinity and Beyond. You can get Adventures of Middle Earth, and possibly, although this will depend on how things shake out with Alligator Alley over the next couple of weeks, but possibly Esper Genesis stuff as well. Exclamation Point Arv Treon is the Patreon right there. 21 patrons per month, 193 per month. We're trying to build that above 200 and keep going northward so we can get more channel goals filled out. It really does make it possible for me to do stuff like have the light panel that's over there and have that camera that's there, and to do things which improves the quality of the stream, also which supports my writing, that allows me to do other things which hopefully will supplement and help the stream. So that's the hope anyway. So any support that people can give there would be much appreciated. And of course, subbing to the channel will allow you to get those custom sub badges and emotes and inspire the players, just like having the Patreon supported at a certain level lets you inspire the players in our tabletop campaigns as well. That is going to lead us to the publishing stuff. Exclamation Point Icarus, which is, as Rock God just put there, my graphic novel from Athos Arts. Very excited about information coming about both that and Athos more generally coming soon, so stick around for that. Exclamation Point Library, Tales and Tomes from the Forbidden Library, my 5e adventure and sourcebook from Alligator Alley Entertainment, which has become even more poignant to me given Brian's passing. The person who did the layout and graphic design and art direction for that book. I'm really want that to get out of customs. I really want that book now, and I want to be able to see it and just sort of another tribute to Brian's wonderful work on it. So, but in the meantime, you can see his wonderful work in digital form over on DriveThruRPG if you type in that link that I just mentioned, Exclamation Point Library. And Exclamation Point Greyshade KS. This is my Greyshade Kickstarter. Very excited about this as well, because the Kickstarter is going to be coming next month and is going to be a big one with a whole new IP. Not brand new, but a fairly new IP and a whole bunch of other stuff coming from me very soon. So I'm very excited about that. Also, it's going to be good times. Otherwise, last things to remember, Exclamation Point BLM, Black Lives Matter. Very important to affirm and assert the significance and importance of Black lives, especially these days. And Exclamation Point Help Now, the World Health Organization page on suicide prevention. Very important to reach out to others if you need help, and to reach out to others if they need help as well. We are our brothers and sisters keepers, and the only way that we can continue to maintain a society is by reaching out to others, like we've done in the pandemic, like we need to continue to do. We do need to help each other. So let's hope that we can continue to make that happen collectively together. That's going to do it for me. We are going to do a raid today. If you are not a sub, you're going to do this, which is the Arvanauts Have Landed, followed by Twitch raid, lowercase Twitch, uppercase R, lowercase AID. If you are a sub, you're going to do this, Arvany Hype, the Arvanauts Have Landed, Twitch raid, Arvany Roar, and then a whole bunch of others. You just saw it from Mrs. Dunsel, the emote row, Arvany Roar, Arvany What, Arvany Woe, Arvany Witch, Arvany Hype, and of course there's also Arvany Smug, Arvany Love. So those things, any Arvanys you could think about, you can throw in there, and that would be awesome if you're able to do that. Otherwise, that we will be brought over automagically to the place that we're going to raid, and I think let's double check and see who it's going to be. Oh yes, I know who we're going to raid. Absolutely. I know who we're going to raid. It's going to be good. Da, da, da. All right. I know who we're going to raid. So stick around for that. Thank you so much to all the wonderful viewers today. Thank you to Dragonspear, Rock God, Shadow Mage, Triffity Mats, best mods in the business. Thank you to my subscribers, Dragonspear, Rock God, Shadow Mage, Triffity Mats, Cat Rambo, Crit Twitch, Live Suing, Mrs. Dunsel, Video Store Cowboy, and Write Teach Play. Thank you so much to my viewers as well. Oh, and my Patreon supporters in that group also. Thank you. Thank you to my viewers, Aiton, Divinorium, what's up, Div? Arinth, what's up, Arinth? Foxy by Proxy, hello, Foxy. Galadriel bot, totally not a bot. Harlequin, Jagtress, Leoric, Lich Card, Sherry Key, Small Town Wizards, Spurious, Tilted Gaming, Tauntoms, Thopirds, and V&K. Thank you all so much for being here. You were all lovely and awesome. And special thanks today to two groups. First, my players, Kat Rambo, Johnny Pittman, Carlos Hernandez, and Zach Clay, the amazing, amazing crew for Esper Genesis. And thank you again to the wonderful folks at Alligator Rally. Thank you to Eric. Thank you to Chris. Thank you to Rich. And especially thank you and rest in peace to Brian. Went far too early, but left a big legacy for us here. And I hope, again, as I talked about, that awareness of who he was and who people like that are that bring us these games we love will be something that can stick with you as we move forward. But that's going to do it for me. Much love, and I will see all of you wonderful folks very soon. Until then, everyone be good to each other. Have a good night.
When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I grew older, I set aside childish ways. Corinthians 13:11. In the distant future, mankind has spread into the stars and found it is not alone. Within the cluster of planets known as the Silrain Arc, many races strive for survival or supremacy. But throughout this array of planets, societies, and cultures, each has one thing in common: the crucibles. Scattered throughout the galaxy, each moon-sized structure contains a core of raw thorium, a form of mysterious energy used to power ships, cities, and sometimes the warping of the fabric of reality itself. Beings who can do this have been given a name: Espers. The power of God has been granted to God's children. It is a time of terror. It is a time of wonder. It is the time of Esper Genesis.